Welcome, everybody, to a very special episode, I feel, of the Sitrep Podcast, where we're going to be taking a look at the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Chosin Reservoir. So, this is a conflict which we've never really gotten too deep into here on the Sitrep Podcast. We've talked about some bolt-action miniatures, some warlord miniatures here and there when they're starting to venture a little bit into sort of a light view of Korea. We're going to be diving into some actual historical detail a little bit more deeply here, because today's kind of a special day. Or actually, I shouldn't say today. I mean, today is. But in general, the end of November, the first 2 weeks of December. Those basically 3 weeks. I think it's December 27th through, like, December 10th or something. November 27th to December 10th, something like that, is a pretty important battle. Especially if you are, if you study the Korean War in particular, and especially if you are or ever were a member of the United States Marine Corps. You hear a lot about the Chosin Reservoir. So this was a pretty serious battle. It sort of it's not one of those revered battles in the history of the Marine Corps. It occupies sort of shelf space with places like Belleau Wood in 1918, Iwo Jima in 45, Guadalcanal in 42 and early 43, Hue City, Quezon. Chosin Reservoir is right up there. It's one of those battles. If you're a U.S. Marine or a former U.S. Marine, it is not a battle that is easily forgotten. That's for damn sure. Also, I thought this battle would be neat to look into because, again, we're trying to focus more on post-World War II, more of the modern era. This is really sort of right on the line between World War II and modern. Obviously, Korean War is not World War II, but it's, in gaming terms, it's damn close. Most of the armies, especially the American Army, was still very, very much a World War II sort of an army. It was still conscripted. It was still mostly draftees, is what I mean by that. It was still segregated. It was using all the World War II orders of battle. It was using almost entirely World War II equipment. It's U.S. Army, U.S. Marine Corps is very, very much a late war, kind of a thing. Korea is in some ways like the post-credit scene of World War II movie. It's, or at least the underperforming sequel. Not to be too coy about it. It's when it comes down to actual, nuts and bolts gaming level kind of data. It's very much a late World War II sort of a model. So today I am joined by my friend Piotr. Hello, Piotr. How are you doing, sir?
Hello, Jim. Not too bad. Except it's Sunday, so tomorrow's work. That's the bad news of today, but apart from that, everything's fine.
That is true. Our 4-day weekend is just about over here for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. For those of you on the Sitrep Podcast who celebrate Halloween, hello, Marty. How you doing? Welcome to the stream, sir. For those of you who celebrate celebrate Thanksgiving, first of all, I hope everyone had a great Halloween. But on top of that, I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving as well. Okay, so the Trojan Reservoir, what are we talking about? We are talking about, quite obviously, the Korean War. So, the Korean War obviously starts in July. It actually starts in the summer. I can't remember if it's June or July. It starts in the summer of 1950. Korea winds up at the end of World War II being split between pro-Soviet or communist North and a pro-Western South. Korea was part of the Japanese Empire since I think 1890 or something like that. So when the Soviets invaded Manchuria on August 9th, 1945, the very, very end of World War II, that invasion kicks off the day we drop the second atomic bomb on Nagasaki. They pretty much take out Manchuria. The Soviets take out Manchuria in the last great real offensive of World War II. They take not only Manchuria, but they wind up with a big slice of Korea as well, of the Korean Peninsula. So we wind up with, at the end of the war, 2 Koreas. I mean, this is everybody knows this. This is very basic information. They did not get along, and very, very shortly, like within 5 years, in the summer of 1950, North Korea invades. South Korea, and in a surprise attack, and they do a heck of a lot of damage. They push the South Koreans, which aren't really an army yet. Again, there's only been a North and South Korea for 5 years at this point. They push the South Koreans far down the Korean Peninsula. I don't have it on this map because the map doesn't go that far south, but they get pushed into a tiny little pocket called the Pusan Perimeter, which is like 10% of a tiny little toehold there on the very tip of the South Korean Peninsula. And it looks like the South Koreans, along with their American allies, other allies from the United Nations, the British were coming in, all kinds of nations were coming in. The Australians were coming in. I'm pretty sure the Canadians were definitely in there. Unlike Vietnam, the Korean War was definitely a United Nations effort. So you have a much stronger coalition around the Americans and the South Koreans in Korea than you would see later around the Americans and South Vietnamese around in South Vietnam in the later Vietnam War. But for now, you've got them pinned down pretty badly in this tiny little, which isn't again on this map, tiny little Pusan perimeter. And listeners of the Sitrep Podcast will know that Oriskany is no fan of General Douglas MacArthur. I'm not a big fan of him as a general. I'm not a big fan of him as a human being. I think he was, I don't think very highly of him in pretty much any category. However, I do have to give it up to him here at Incheon. So MacArthur, who's sort of in charge here, of this disastrous defensive battle in Korea at the time. He's in charge, and he decides to counterattack at a place called Incheon, and that's way down here right by Seoul. So again, the North Koreans have all of this, and it keeps going. Again, this map doesn't go that far south. They have the entire Korean peninsula, except for this tiny little toehold, remaining clinging to toehold at a place called Pusan. And Incheon lands a Marine division and then later some Army troops behind the North Koreans here at this tiny little place called Incheon. You can barely probably read it there. A terribly risky landing. It has some of the tallest tides in the world, something like 40 or 50 feet tides, because of the way that bay is shaped. I won't get into all the details. It's another famous Marine Corps battle. And again, I'm not a fan of MacArthur. I don't like him. I think he's I don't think very highly of him, let's put it that way. But at the same time, Incheon really was a masterstroke. I do have to give it up for MacArthur here at Incheon. Obviously, he retakes Seoul almost immediately. He cuts across this way, and now the North Koreans are in headlong retreat back up to the north. So the Korean War is one of those campaigns that's seesaws back and forth a great deal. Starts off with the North Koreans damn near kicking the United Nations clean off the Korean Peninsula. MacArthur sort of restores the situation with his landing on Incheon. He retakes Seoul, that's the capital of South Korea. He's now restored to the original start line, that's the 30th parallel that we see right there. And he is now starting to get a little bit of a buffer zone here in North Korea. A place for UN negotiations to sort of trade back land in return for stability or recognition of South Korean sovereignty or who knows what. And if he had stopped there, everything would have been fine. But no, he didn't, because he's MacArthur. And here's where MacArthur loses all his goodwill. He keeps pushing. He keeps pushing upward. President Truman, the guy who's in charge, tells him to stop. He does not stop. He keeps pushing. He starts bombing some of the bridges across the Yalu River. And I'll explain what that is in just a second. So the Yalu River sort of runs right along here. This is the border between Red China, Communist China, and North Korea. The problem is, when there's a river that forms the border between two nations and you start bombing the river, what are you doing? You're bombing China, whether you know it or not. China doesn't like this very much. Truman warns him to stop. President Truman, I should say, warns MacArthur to stop. You are, threatening to, bring China into the war. MacArthur publicly says, and I quote, "I can take care of China if you give me just 20 atomic bombs." Stalin hears this. Mao Zedong hears this. it doesn't go well. And guess what? China enters the war, and this is where we come to our battle today at the Chosin Reservoir. So, despite all kinds of intelligence indications that the Chinese were about to enter the war, here's the front line in the middle of November 1950. This is November, like I said, November 1950. This is the North Pacific. This is Korea. This is not the palm trees and sandy beaches that we see in the Pacific War. This is ice cold. This is desperately cold. You're pretty much on the border with Siberia. It is absurdly cold up here. And it's, of course, Korea is very mountainous. And now you have 300,000 Chinese troops entering the battle, and you're not ready to face them because your divisions, you can see here all the UN positions, they're all spread out, especially out here to the east. There's practically nobody, or at least, much less, far fewer units the further east you extend. The main battle line is here. At the same time, you can also see how close the front line is to the Chinese border. There's the Chinese border there, and there's MacArthur's front line. It's not so hot. He's about to invade China, and he's threatening China with 20 atomic weapons. He's flagrantly disregarding directives from the State Department, Department of Defense, the White House, the Oval Office. And he pays the price for it. More importantly, his men pay the price for it, because the Chinese do enter the war. MacArthur's not prepared. He now has 300,000 troops that he wasn't ready to contend with, attacking him. And what that is of course, the Chinese offensive that sort of kicks off the next phase of the Korean War. And that's all these red arrows that we see. Let me go ahead and change my little doodle tool here. That's all these red arrows that we see here. So we see where most of the attacks were coming here along the main line, the main United Nations line down here. Obviously, they're instantly being pushed back. There's tremendous casualties. There's tremendous losses. Almost immediately, if in fact it hasn't happened already, MacArthur is almost immediately fired because he's completely screwed the Korean War, right in the ass. Tens of thousands of UN troops are dead directly because of his his terrible decisions. One of the worst battles that we're going to look at, as far as how MacArthur really did it to us here in Korea, is at a place, of course, called the Chosin Reservoir. Obviously, it has a very different name now, but at the time it was called the Chosin Reservoir. And we see where we have the Chinese Ninth Army coming down out of the northwest and attacking U.S. Marine, U.S. Army positions here around this little section of the line here. Now, before I get into the details here of how the Chosin Reservoir really got started, Piotr, have you done much reading or study or gaming on the Korean War? Has it ever interested you as a gamer or a historian?
Actually, not really. So I'm listening with great, I don't know how to say it. It's really interesting what you're saying, because I read something about Korea some time ago, meaning like 10 years or something.
Right.
So I don't remember much. I know about the Chosin, yes, Reservoir battle, and the landings of Incheon. So the iconical battles, so to speak, are more or less known to me. I know such thing as this regimental combat team 31, I believe. This Task for Faith was present over there, and how it all ended. But I did not play a single game in the Korean War theater of operations, so to speak.
Here in America, it's sometimes called the Forgotten War. Everyone knows about World War II. Everyone knows about Vietnam. In the middle is the Korean War, and it's kind of it's too often forgotten about, which is not right. Especially today, being 70th anniversary to the day, like exactly the 70th anniversary of one of the more important engagements that we're going to look at today in Panzerleader. Chosin Reservoir. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, because fortunately I have a nice high resolution map. So the Chosin Reservoir, we can kind of see it outlined here. This is extremely mountainous, extremely cold, extremely remote. I mean, you're up in the ass end of nowhere up here in this part of North Korea. As badly developed as North Korea is now, you can imagine what it was like 70 years ago. There was nothing up here. A couple of roads, and again, this reservoir that the Chinese were using as a basis for their attack. So again, 1st Marine Division, or I should say forward elements of 1st Marine Division, were, kind of in a couple of positions. I'm going to be very, very rough and approximate here. Around here, around the Chosin Reservoir, they were kind of scattered around, mostly to the west, a little bit to the east, and not quite past it is where they were more or less their dispositions for the Chosin Reservoir. And then, of course, again, Chinese 9th Army attacks. 20th Corps, a couple other corps I can't remember right now, but a huge force, 8 divisions in all. So at least 2, maybe 3 corps, depending on how you interpret Chinese army organizations. You're looking at least 8 divisions. There were 12 divisions in all. 4 of them never really got into the battle, so smart money is always on 8 divisions. Given the Chinese division strength in the Korean War, we're looking at about 80 to 100,000 men. Anywhere between 60 and 120 is where the estimates range. Smart money is usually about 80,000 men. Figure about 10,000 men per division. Are attacking the Chosin Reservoir, obviously sweeping around both sides like this. And they're trying to cut off all these Marine positions here in the front. So that's the general Chinese plan. They have some nice roads to kind of facilitate this attack. You can see these white roads here. So there is a it's very easy to set up a pincer attack. Chosin Reservoir is made for a pincer attack out of the northwest toward the southeast, just by the contours of the terrain and, of course, where the main highways are. As we look closer at the map still, if I can zoom in a little bit more. Again, I apologize if I lose a little bit of resolution here, but I want to get a little bit closer. I have a better map in just a second, but I'm trying to look at the big picture first. Again, as 9th Army is coming out of the, following these roads to execute their big, pincer attack, very, very clearly, everybody can tell this place called Hagaru-ri at the southern tip of the Chosin Reservoir is going to be a very important piece of real estate in the coming weeks. This is where things are going to get very, very hairy. So all these Americans that are kind of in these positions, I'll make them a different color here super fast. I'll make them green. All these American positions that are kind of scattered around both sides of the Chosin Reservoir here, we're talking about a couple regiments, fragmentary regiments, maybe 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 men at the most 2,000 or 3,000 men. I don't think it was that high. I'll have to do more research to let you know exactly what the numbers were, but it's not very many soldiers, not soldiers, Marines, I should say. 2,000 or 3,000 men tops, and that's being really generous. Let's call it 1,500. So we have 1,500 Marines, and they are being faced off against and outflanked by, surrounded by 80,000 Chinese regulars. So again, 1,500, call it 2,000 troops, 2,000 Marines, 80,000 Chinese. They're outnumbered 40 to 1 and already outflanked on both wings. They're basically surrounded and outnumbered 40 to 1. In the words of a great Marine commander called Corporal Hicks from the movie Aliens, he uttered the famous phrase, "Drake, we are leaving." Needless to say, Marines who never retreat, they were learning how to retreat very, very quickly. They were not, Marines are badass. We don't fight at 40 to 1. It's time to go. And that's where Hagaru, again, that's kind of the long way around, saying Hagaru is going to be very, very important. Again, there are no roads through here. There is the one road leading here out of the northwest. There's another road here coming out of the north. They meet up here at Hagaru. Hagaru-ri is actually the name of the town. Hagaru-ri, if I'm pronouncing that right, that is the linchpin. That is the choke point. That is what has to stand if there's going to be any kind of evacuation. if anyone is going home, Hagaru has to stand. If Hagaru falls, all these people are spending the rest of their lives in a Chinese gulag. There's no coming home. And again, there's a couple major elements of at least a couple Marine regiments up there. So it's time to, number one, all these guys to really get the hell out of here. And Hagaru, which is already being sort of overrun and outflanked and surrounded on all sides, it needs to stand for at least another couple days. They need help, and they need help now. So scrolling down a little bit, I've got a little bit of a better map here of how Chosin Reservoir sort of shook out. Now this map is a little bit rotated counterclockwise, so north is actually to the right for some reason. Or I'm sorry, to the left. So north is that way, generally speaking. Okay, so again, we see where, again, Hagaru-ri, there's an airfield there, and again, those two roads meet, and then you got to head south to get back to the Sea of Japan where the U.S. Navy is ready to evacuate. Yeah, the Hagaru has to stand. And again, it's already being outflanked by, looks like, let me see here. If I can scroll down there, I would appreciate it. It's already being outflanked by 59th, 58th Divisions, 44th Division. Again, there's 8 Chinese divisions in all. You can see the Americans and also some Army troops. There's that 31st Infantry you were talking about. They're desperately trying to pull out, this way. The Marines, we're talking about 5th, 7th, and 11th Marines, fragments thereof, are desperately trying to pull back. They have to reach Hagaru-ri and then fall back to the south to where they're going to get rescued by the U.S. Navy. So here we have some other sections. Let's see, how far does this map go? Does it go all the way to the coast? No, it does not go all the way to the coast. So Hugnam is the port that that's going to be the American Dunkirk. That's where the Americans are going to be evacuated by sea to get the hell out of here. They have to reach there. It's 40 more kilometers off this map. But for now, out of places like Mahjong there, or Mahjong if I'm saying that right, and more importantly, Koto-ri is a little staging point there. What they're trying to do is, in order to make sure that Hagaru-ri stands for at least another couple of days or a couple hours, I mean, this battle's really getting desperate here, they have to send some reinforcements out of Koto-ri up what they call Hellfire Valley. So while everybody in the world is running away from the Chinese, while everyone in the world is running away from the Chinese, these poor guys have to run into the burning building, so to speak, get to Hagaru-ri, and hold it, or at least reinforce it, for just a couple hours, a couple days, long enough for these Marines and these U.S. Army to reach Hagaru-ri, pass through that bottleneck, and then everybody can evacuate together. This advance up Hellfire Valley is what we're going to be looking at today in our game of Panzerleader. So our map is going to be, again, if that is 5 kilometers, our map is going to be roughly kind of like this, with the top of the map going that way. We're basically just going to take a random stretch of Hellfire Highway, and we're going to look at part of this relief force, and we're going to see if they can advance up the map. Is the long and short. So, Piotr, would you say that this is almost like the American Stalingrad combined with an American Dunkirk? As far as, we're hopelessly outnumbered, we're hopelessly encircled, it's time to run, it's frozen terrain, it's like 20 degrees below zero, 30 degrees below zero, impossible terrain, and all we're really trying to do is to get back to a seaport where we can be evacuated by sea, back down here somewhere to friendly lines.
Oh yeah, that's true. But the Americans were reasonable enough, to let their troops evacuate. Not like the Germans at Stalingrad.
Yeah. So maybe Cherkasy Pocket would be a better example. If memory serves, on the Eastern Front, Cherkasy Pocket in February of '44 was almost, again, frigid winter conditions along the Dnieper River, and actually a large body of water was right there too, a large lake or a large reservoir. Actually, now that I think about it, Cherkasy Pocket is a far better example, or a far better comparison.
Oh yeah.
They were being surrounded on all sides by Voronezh and I think first Ukrainian fronts. And it was time for the Germans to leave. Hitler said no. Manstein said yes. And Manstein says, I'm not watching Stalingrad happen again. And he gave them orders to break out, and then he had other troops try to break in. Not all of them made it, but at least some of them did, if memory serves.
You're correct.
I'm correct as long as I speak in general terms. Once I get down to specifics is when I start tripping myself up. What's going on here, Mr. Stream here? 1,500 gyrenes. Bob Peterson, I will let that slide. Bob Peterson, if I'm not mistaken, I think you actually are a Chinese. I almost said Chinese. I think you actually are. Are you the actual Marine veteran who's joined our group lately? Yeah, 1,500 is the number I've heard. 80,000 Chinese, about a fair fight. Yeah, we've been going over the odds and the most atrocious conditions and difficulties that the Marines were up against here at Chosin Reservoir. Tuffy Ears over in Twitch says, I did notice that Jim got confused between left and right. Trademark of a Marine. Okay, well, first of all, Tuffy Ears, I don't mind you calling me stupid. I don't mind you calling Marine stupid. But goddamn it, Tuffy Ears, when you write the word Marine and you're referring to a U.S. Marine, you will capitalize the word Marine. And it's capital M-A-R-I-N-E. We are not Space Marines. We are not trademarked by GW. Capital M, please. Other than that, you can say what you want.
We're not playing 40k today?
No, we are not. It's going to feel a little like 40k. Just being, swarmed by millions of Chinese orcs. It's going to feel a little like 40k. Cool, Bob Peterson. That's what I thought. Yeah, your name definitely struck me as familiar. So Bob Peterson can say whatever he wants about the Marines. He can even use the J word if he really wants to. I hope he doesn't, but he can use the J word if he really wants to. I think he and I are the only ones who are going to be allowed to do that. But in a more serious vein, yeah, we've gone over kind of what Trojan Reservoir is all about. Now let's get into some gaming mechanics. So I will zoom out. Oop, not that much. Here we have a map in Panzerleader. Again, we're looking at 150 meter hexes. I play a slightly different version of Panzerleader than what you see in the box. 150 meter hexes instead of 250 meter hexes. We see this general road, again, leading out of the south-southeast, heading up into the north-northwest. That is leading from Hagaru-ri, which is somewhere down here, toward Hagaru-ri, which is somewhere up here. And Bob Peterson says, nah. No worries, Tuffy Ears, no worries. I'm just, in all fairness, I mean, we're all just playing around here. I've got a few little villages along the way just for terrain purposes. This is a pretty desolate stretch of North Korea, so I may be being a little too generous here with my urban hexes. They are all light urban hexes. They're built of wood, so they do not give the full urban defense bonuses. They're mostly for scenery. Because they're not concrete or stone buildings, they don't give the full Arab-Israeli Wars game mechanic defense bonuses. So there's not going to be, they're not going to be like little Stalingrad hexes that just, stand and house little companies of Chinese infantry. The Americans practically need a tactical nuke to get them out of them. A lot of elevation on this map. Terribly mountainous up in here. Moving on either side of this road was damn near impossible for vehicles. Troops are trudging through very deep snow drifts. Again, it's like 20 or 30 degrees below zero. When you include the wind chill factor, it is frigid. It is, again, the American Stalingrad. It is, people are having, fingers and toes are falling off from frostbite. It is terrible. One interesting fact, though, the Americans at least had cold weather gear. The Chinese did not. They were sent in here in summer uniforms. So, it wasn't very good for the Chinese either here in this battle. Okay, we have Warpelbite says in YouTube, 30 below, I've heard stories that the M1 carbine could penetrate heavy winter clothing of the Chinese, or couldn't penetrate the heavy winter clothing of the Chinese. That might be true. Unfortunately for the Chinese, many of their divisions here did not actually have heavy winter clothing. They sent them into this winter battle in summer uniforms, at least on a lot of them. Aren't I supposed to defend the mountaintops? Not in this battle, Vorpalbite. I will say that having the mountaintops, okay, well, first of all, yes, affordable bites, sort of. And what I mean by that is this road is the main objective. The Marines and other troops, I'll get into that in just a second, have to advance northwest up this road. However, the high ground that dominates either shoulder of the road, yes, we are trying to take and defend mountaintops to a certain degree. So, short answer is yes. Now, in defense, yeah, you want to hold the mountaintops, but again, this particular scenario is looking at an allied, and I'll get into that in just a second, an allied advance from Kotori up here to Hagaru-ri. We are trying to advance. We're not. This is the Americans on the assault. The Americans on the advance. We're not on defense. Which sounds weird, considering everything I just said about Chosin Reservoir. But again, Hagaru-ri has to stand long enough for Marines to withdraw from this side of the Chosin and U.S. Army to withdraw from that side of the Chosin. So even though this is a defensive campaign, a defensive battle, this particular engagement that we're doing today, 29 November 1950, 70 years ago to the day, is actually an Allied assault. Speaking of which, let's take a look at our troops here. Oh no, wrong turn. I'll get there eventually. Construction tab. Alright, there we go. Okay, Chosin Reservoir is mostly remembered as a U.S. Marine battle. What we have here are the exact units that were involved in this particular offensive. That is Gulf Company, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines. So we have 3 late World War II style U.S. Marine platoons. Yes, these numbers are verified. I know they're very high for Panzerleader. And yes, they are taken from the imaginative-strategist.com website. If you guys ever get into Panzerleader, check out imaginative-strategist.com. Now, I did add my own graphics to these counters, but the values are from Imaginative Strategist. Marine rifle platoons by the end of World War II were 2 things. Well, actually 3 things. Number 1, they were hard as nails because they were U.S. Marines. That's a subjective view. It's a view that I hold. Probably my friend Bob Peterson probably holds. Hello, Ben Johnson. How you doing? Do I have counters for stacking frozen corpses for defensive cover? Sadly, no, because this game is a little too high echelon for that. But I tell you what, if I was to do something like this in Valor and Victory, I would probably have a rule for that. For byte. I know we're not really kidding when you say that. U.S. Marines and U.S. Army troops, pretty much UN in general, during that first terrible winter, 1950 to 51, did infamously resort to the tactic of stacking Chinese corpses for cover. We used them as sandbags. Or not we, I wasn't there. Marines and U.S. Army, actually, again, UN troops in general did use them for sandbags. Yeah, that first winter in Korea was no joke. Again, we have U.S. Marine counters. Again, for a World War II style, again, Korea is sort of a World War II sequel kind of a thing. These are obscenely high, but that's by design. We're looking at U.S. Marines in 1945 to 1950, and by then U.S. Marines were number 1, hard as hell. Number 2, huge. And by that I mean the squad. Well, here's one quick fundamental difference. The U.S. Army squad is typically 9 men or so, which is 2 fire teams of 4 and a squad leader or a sergeant. We're looking at 3 fire teams for a U.S. Marine squad. 3 fire teams of 4 for 12, plus the sergeant squad leader makes 13. So you're looking at least a 50% difference there just in the size of the unit. And then at least 3, if not 4, platoons in the squad. 4 squads in the platoon and 3 platoons plus a heavy weapon section in the company. So a U.S. Marine Corps company, or the platoon in this case, was a pretty big unit. And they were armed to the teeth. I mean, the number of Thompsons, 30 cals, bazookas, flamethrowers, maybe not flamethrowers, that's more of an engineer thing. But the amount of weaponry carried by the average U.S. Marine platoon was actually a lot higher than you see in a U.S. Army platoon. Obviously, the Marine Corps is a lot smaller as far as the size of the service, so the density of weapons in their individual rifle companies and rifle platoons is a lot higher. So we're not being just facetious and saying, oh, Marines are better than U.S. Army when we compare their two sections here. It's the size of the order of battle for a platoon, and it's the number of weapons carried within that platoon. Did I mention BARs, Bob Peterson? I hope I did not. Oh, you were talking about your own thing. World War II Marine squads had extra BAR gunners, 3 fire teams, yes, 13 men, more Thompsons. Now, imaginative strategist, Bob, as you look through their, I think it's Panzer Leader number 7. Panzer Leader U.S. Infantry Counter Sheet number 7. They call it A Few Good Men. Designed by my friend Byron Henderson, who I'm also in touch with. I'm not sure if he subscribes to Sitrep, but we do talk, and we do talk on tabletop and stuff like that. Yeah, he actually has on his counter sheets 3 sort of generations of Marines. You'll see attack factors of 2, 3, and these ones here that are 5. So you see 2s that you would use in Guadalcanal in 42 and 43, the 3s that you would see later on in places like Tarawa, Kwajalein, and maybe even Peleliu, and then the late war Marines that are by now, I mean, goddamn, dude. Marine infantry platoons by the end of World War II. I mean, look at the places they were assaulting. Iwo Jima, Okinawa. They bring lots of toys because they know they've got a big job ahead of them, attacking these Japanese islands in the North Pacific, and they kind of carried that into Korea. So yeah, bigger fire team. I'm sorry, not bigger fire teams. Bigger squads stack up into bigger platoons and more heavily armed. That's the reason for the number difference. I've also verified that U.S. Marine tanks were predominantly in this war the M26 Pershing. I was afraid I was going to have to use Shermans in this thing. But we do have M26 Pershings in this game, so that's awesome. And of course, task forces, U.S. Navy task forces 77 and 90 were offshore in the Sea of Japan, so we're looking at plenty of Marine Corps Corsairs. I do have some Corsairs with bombs. I don't know why they're not here, but they're supposed to be Marine Corps Corsairs with rockets. Okay, they're on this tab here. Sorry about that. Slight clerical error. We have Marine Corps Corsairs carrying rockets. Those are not going to be nearly as useful because the Chinese don't have any tanks. North Koreans did famously use the T-34-85 in the Korean War, but we're not fighting North Koreans here, we're fighting Chinese. So those anti-tank rockets aren't going to be the best. Fortunately, we've got plenty of napalm. Marine Corps Corsairs were just blanketing Korea in napalm during this battle. So again, we have a small Marine Corps force. D Company 1st Tank Battalion, or I should say Dog Company 1st Tank Battalion, and again Golf Company, or I should say George Company. We're using the old naming nomenclature. George Company 2nd Battalion 1st Marines, Dog Company 1st Battalion. Nowadays that would be Golf and Delta, but back in the day that was usually George and Dog for a G and a D. There was also that aforementioned, Piotr nailed it earlier when he was talking about 31st Regimental Combat Team. These guys were definitely there as well. This is a small element thereof. Historically, these guys were here on this road. This is Baker Company, 1st Battalion, 31st Infantry. They're part of the 7th U.S. Infantry Division. We do have late war U.S. Army platoons, 81mm mortar section, a machine gun section, some trucks. I do have mention in my notes and in my references of these M16s. M16 is not the M16 assault rifle. It is the old World War II improvised self-propelled anti-aircraft vehicle where the Army would put 50 calibers, if not 1, if not 2, perhaps sometimes 4 50 cals in a quad mount on the back of a half-track and try to shoot down German aircraft with it. Not always the most effective anti-aircraft vehicle, but I tell you what, 4 50 cals will make a mess of some Chinese infantry. And of course a Jeep, because why not? Now here's the surprise, at least for me. We have elements of 41st Royal Marine Commando. This is Task Force Drysdale. This whole force I'm looking at today. So Chesty Puller is being pushed out of Chosin. He's got his 1,500 troops there. And okay, I have a quick question in the chat here. Pershings, awesome. Never seen them in a Panzer Leader game. Okay, cool, Ben. We will talk about them in just a second. Whispering Death, yes, the Japanese name Warpobite for the Corsair. Awesome. Yep. Big change with the war for marine weapons. Absolutely. Huge. Absolutely huge. M16 quads were used to great effect in Korea. I do have notes that they were used on this road, so I included at least one platoon of them here in Task Force Drysdale. So, like I was saying before, the Marines and Army are being pushed out of Chosin. They're trying to evacuate through Hagaru-ri, and as they're being pushed down, Chesty Puller is trying to scrape together this force of whatever the hell is nearby to push back up the road the other way and reinforce that evacuation point. What he has are elements of 41st Independent Royal Marine Commando, of all people. We got British Royal Marines that are just hanging out, man. They just happen to be in the area. Chesty Puller talks to their commander, Lieutenant Colonel Drysdale, and says, I need someone to go up that road and hold or reinforce Hagaru-ri just long enough for us to evacuate back through it. So he actually takes command, Drysdale does, Lieutenant Colonel Drysdale, actually takes command of this force. He's the senior officer present that Chesty Puller has access to. And so I have 3 platoons of Royal Marine Commandos here. A machine gun section. I give them combat engineers. Basically, I give them 1, 2, 3. I give them these 3 sections that are battalion level support. Engineers, a mortar section, and a headquarters unit, because he's the senior unit on the table, and he actually has, a battalion level command. Plenty of trucks and jeeps as well to carry all this stuff. So we are looking at not so much Royal Marines, British Royal Marines being attached to American units. The reverse is true. The umbrella unit in today's game is actually British. I know that sounds weird, but that was what was actually happened. And the Army and Marines are being attached to him. So it's a multinational force. We have we have British and Americans fighting shoulder to shoulder, both U.S. Army and U.S. Marines, fighting under British command, which is something that you don't often hear. Supported by Navy bombers, or at least Marine Corps bombers launched off of Navy carriers. Of course, there has to be bad guys, so I put pretty much the entire 178th Regiment on the table. Chinese equipment and motor transport was really, really bad, so you'll notice no trucks, and you'll notice nothing that really needs a truck to move it around, with the exception being those douches there at the end. Other than that, everything at least has a little bit of a movement factor. Pretty much if you couldn't walk here, you weren't coming here. So there's not a lot of Chinese off-board artillery. No divisional 76.2mm guns left over from the Great Patriotic War. No Soviet, 100mm howitzers, 122mm howitzers. Nothing crazy. This is a straight-out Chinese, infantry force. These are basically Soviet World War II counters out of Panzer Leader that I've been working on in my new Panzer Leader Liberation model. I just changed the colors slightly, and of course I put a Chinese flag on there instead of a Soviet flag. Okay. Sees all that Chinese infantry, jaw hits the floor. Yeah, we're looking at a full regiment. So again, a platoon, again, a Panzer Leader is based on platoons. So every one of these stacks is 3 platoons, that's your company. 3 companies makes a battalion. 3 battalions makes a regiment with battalion level support. There's no regimental support here. I don't have any Soviet 120s, I don't have any Soviet howitzers or divisional guns, anti-tank guns, stuff like that. This is a stripped down, bare PVA regiment, People's Volunteer Army. And of course the command unit, just because. Chinese are Morale C, Americans and British are Morale A. Because again, they're badass. We have Marines and we have British Royal Marine Commandos. The American Army, should a drafty army from 7th U.S. Infantry really have Morale A, it should really be Morale B. But I'm not trying to slam on the Army here, and again, I don't want to keep track of too many different morale values. So I just went ahead and made, the Allies all Morale A. Okay, we had some other questions in the chat here, especially in YouTube. Alrighty, the Whispering Death. Yeah, Vorpal White mentions the Japanese name for the F4U Corsair, my favorite fighter of World War II. But again, I'm biased. The Corsair was a fighter that originally designed for the Navy. The Navy didn't really like it because it wasn't so hot for carrier operations. It was difficult to land. The Navy called it the Ensign Eliminator because if you were an inexperienced pilot, you would be killed trying to land this friggin' thing. Yeah. But yeah, the Japanese called it the Whispering Death because it was so fast, it made this weird whistling noise as it went through the air, and by the time you heard it, you were already dead as a Japanese fighter pilot. Ben Johnson mentions the Pershings. Yeah, never seen them in a Panzer Leader game. I did hope to put them up against some communist armor, either North Korean T-34s or maybe even some Chinese armor, but there wasn't any there historically, so we're just going to use the Pershings with dual-purpose ammunition. We're basically going to use the Sherman and Tiger rule on them here against Chinese infantry. Are the Marines, Bob Peterson asks, are the Marines allowed to load up on tanks or do they need motor T? I tend to not use the tank rider rule or Tankovny descent rule. I've used it in Soviet when I can. So I do have Marine trucks available. Enough Marine trucks to carry everything that the Marines need to carry everything. Technically, would they be allowed to ride on tanks? I've never seen a photo of Marines using tank assault, a tank rider assault. Panzer Leader does allow it. They do have a rule in there for it, but it is up. I mean, if you want a way to lose men fast, use the tank rider rule. You lose infantry very, very quickly doing that. The Soviets didn't care because in World War II because they're Soviets. I would not do that personally with my Marine infantry, especially since I only have 3 platoons. No British armor? No, this is Royal Marine Commando, so I don't think they had any armor there. At least not that I saw any notes for. M16 quads were used to great effect in Korea. Yep, totally, Ben. Sees all that Chinese infantry, the jaw hits the floor. Yeah, again, 80,000 versus 100 versus 1,500 was the overall campaign balance here at Chosin Reservoir. So, if you're going to do anything at Chosin Reservoir, load up lots of Chinese infantry. Vorpal says, I have a request. Can you slightly lower the volume on the background effects, please? Sure, I can do that. Give me 2 seconds, if that is too loud. That is too much. That's hopefully a little bit more reasonable there for you. Large tank formations have vehicles and trucks. Yeah, unfortunately, here we don't really have a large formation. It's literally one company, 3 platoons. When I build battalions or regiments in a more conventional Panzer Leader game, either Western Front or Panzer Blitz on the Eastern Front, oh hell yeah, there's always a lot of trucks. Sometimes the trucks are left off the table because, again, these are only 150 meter hexes, so your trucks will sort of, bring your fuel, bring your spare parts, bring your maintenance, your POL, all that stuff, with your tanks up there, and then the trucks will stay off the table, and then the tanks will actually engage in combat. The trucks are usually not on the front line, but in principle, absolutely, I would agree. Any kind of armored force, every time you see a tank on a battlefield, what you're really looking at is at least 5 or 6 trucks behind it. I would agree with that totally. How big are these units? Battalions? No, these are individual platoons. Each counter in the Panzer Leader is a platoon. So we're looking at 2 at a Marine Rifle Company, just a company. Altogether, the Allies have 921 men on the table. Was the historical force on there. And here in Panzer Leader, we have approximated that. Each platoon is about 40 or 50 men, if it's a rifle platoon. Each tank unit or truck unit is 5 vehicles. So, yeah, Panzer Leader is a small tactical game. Cool, got better when he lowered the volume. Cool. Jim, I'm having some problems hearing you. Okay, are you having problems hearing me in Skype, Fyodor? People can hear me fine in the chat. I may also be talking too much. Alright, I think we are caught up on comments. Make sure I'm not missing anything on Twitch. Yeah, today it looks like most of our traffic is in YouTube, which is great. Usually it's the opposite. Alright, so here we have the next tab in the spreadsheet, which shows the Chinese setup. So I'll zoom in a little. I won't go through every single platoon here because there's just way too much. But as that road, again, winds out of the south-southwest, sorry, south-southwest, east to the north-northwest, yeah, the Chinese have plenty of little roadblocks there that they're going to try and put up against little counterattack points that they've set up there. You see where most of the objective hexes, these are the hexes that are marked by my little, my little targeting icons there. Those are the objective hexes. There are 5 on the table. The United Nations has to take at least 3 of those, by the end of the game. And we probably won't do the entire game today, but obviously, Panzer Leader always takes too long. It's not a light game, to be sure. What the Chinese also have are some anti-aircraft guns in case those Corsairs show up. And what they've also got are those 82mm mortars, those M37s I think they are, that have most of the road in range. They're going to drop HE and frag all over the place, make things a little bit worse for the UN. They are going to use indirect fire, obviously. They're on the back end of this ridge. They're under cover in trees. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. So, here we are at the beginning of turn 1. Or actually, I should say at the end of turn 1. Because science teacher says, sorry, the sound effects always seem loud to me, so I didn't say anything. No worries. It's an easy fix. When you get into the gameplay and it applies, I like to hear how you deal with elevation and movement costs as compared to Panzer Leader, Panzer Blitz. I'm using the usual rules, and I'll explain some slight, I shouldn't say the usual rules. No worries. We will, Bob, I will get into your question. I will get into the question when we actually get more into gameplay here. We also have my Vietnam campaign of Warpro ads. My Vietnam campaign ended last Thursday. Oh, cool. Charlie, oh shit, overran the camp. Sorry about that. Killed everybody. Gonna have to start over from the beginning. Warpro, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you able to hear me now, Piotr, a little bit?
Yeah, I can hear you most of the time, but sometimes it's like I'm losing the audio because I can see everything that you're doing on the screen. There is no lags, it doesn't freeze or anything like that, but sometimes you are loud and sometimes it's like it's a sudden mute for a second or two, and then you're back again. I don't know what's going on.
It might be something up with Skype then, because it sounds like we're okay in our actual stream. Cool. So, I got the game sort of started here. Because again, I wasn't sure, how interesting of a game this was going to be. The Chinese set up pretty much static positions, and the Army, Marine Corps, and British have to kind of hammer their way through it as best they can. But for now, we got it started here. So again, the British Army and Marines came up on the southern part of this road here. They immediately ran into the scout platoon. So U.S. Army company here. This is Baker Company, 1st Battalion, 31st Infantry, spotted this scout platoon. The scout platoon entered on foot. They used the road movement rate. Bob, one thing that you will notice, you're asking about movement rates here, is all of my infantry units have a speed of 2. This is going to be one of the first big changes that you notice. There is a reason for this. Panzer Leader is one of my favorite games ever. It is broken in many places. One place it is broken is the movement rate. The movement rates in Panzer Leader are absolutely stupid. For vehicles, they made a very, very simple and easy to prove mathematical error in their formulas when they were calculating what the movement rates of these vehicles should be. Arab Israeli Wars fixed it. That's why Sherman has a movement rate of 5 in Panzer Leader. In Arab Israeli Wars, but an 8 in Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader. And the reason for that is they just straight out doubled all the vehicle movement rate, basically, or almost doubled it. So they, in Arab-Israeli wars, all the vehicle movement rates were slashed almost in half. Rather than reprint every single counter for Panzerleader, or remake every single counter for Panzerleader, also they made some other mistakes with the ranges. The gun ranges in Panzerleader are just stupidly high. Shermans, Panthers, and Tigers and T-34s are shooting the way Challenger 2s and M1 Abrams do. 250 meter hexes, give me a break. So what we did was we just basically redesigned Panzerleader to use 150 meter hexes rather than 250 meter hexes, and this instantly fixes everything. It fixes the insane movement rates without reprinting the counters. It fixes the ranges of the guns, because a range of 10 with 150 meter hexes is not a range of 10 with 250 meter hexes, and so on and so forth. It's also why we limit to a stacking limit of 3 instead of 4. We also use Arab-Israeli Wars artillery rules, not the completely backwards and broken Panzerleader artillery rules as far as fire saturation goes within a hex. And last but not least, the smaller hexes, however, mean that infantry should move a little bit faster. So I doubled all infantry movement rate. With those a couple of rules fixes, Panzerleader actually works pretty seriously. That, and of course, use Arab-Israeli Wars base mechanics, which is like 3rd edition Panzerleader, basically. Make those fixes, and you're pretty much fine. So these guys coming onto the table were, okay, they have movement rate of 2, double on a road. 1, 2. Actually, 1.5. Because they used the road movement rate, they were not able to close assault the scout platoon right off the bat. That's not how close assault works in the Panzerleader rules or Arab-Israeli War rules. But we did get them spotted. We brought up their trucks. You'll notice some of the U.S. Army trucks actually have 50 caliber machine guns on them. So some of the actual trucks are combat units, believe it or not. You don't see that often. Again, that's another great idea from Imaginative Strategist. Some of the trucks are the much more usual Panzerleader trucks that have no weapons at all. But some of them are carrying 50 cals, because Korea. So that was that little part of the movement. There was a whole bunch of other enemy units here that took a shot at some Royal Marine Commandos coming in on trucks. That was our first Allied casualty of the game. We did lose one platoon of trucks still carrying Royal Marine Commandos. So that's not so hot. That was opportunity fire from a number of places here in from our Chinese forces that were set up in these little town axes. But once they took off their opportunity fire, that left them spotted, and it was their fire phase for the turn. That allowed the U.S. Army and U.S. Marines and the rest of the Royal Marines to sort of swarm up on them and really sort of take them under. You can't fire and move in the same turn in Panzerleader most of the time, but it allowed me to at least rush forward and take most of these places under some kind of observation, getting set up to attack them hard in turn 2. Then of course the Chinese get their turn. I pretty much, again, I'm sort of playing the Chinese as well as the Americans, and the Chinese are just pretty much going to bum rush. So there was all kinds of cat attacks, or prospective cat attacks. American opportunity fire out of these purgings tore up some of these guys. The American Marines were still in their trucks, so they couldn't offer their own opportunity fire, but these purgings definitely could. And again, using the dual ammunition rule, they do not have versus infantry at less than half range. So a 90 millimeter gun on a purging has a range of 12. So these things are going to be tearing up some Chinese infantry. And we also had U.S. Army M16 quad 50 caliber machine guns up on this high ground, shooting off of the high ground, and again also suppressing, killing, destroying some more of these Chinese attacks to make sure that that cat attack never really happened. Turn 2, things got really hairy. So the Allies go first. So now that I have several Chinese positions spotted, I'm able to call in some of those Corsairs. So 2 Corsairs came in out of the sky and bombed, just roasted an entire company of Chinese rifles here on this the shoulder of this ridge. If I can get down to it. absolutely gave them a nice napalm bath. Killed all 3 of them there. It did use up half of my, or a third of my airstrikes. I threw in some more Chinese bomb, or some more napalm on this village here, and roasted 2 of these guys. Again, these Marines did not use opportunity fire last turn. They were able to dismount from their trucks, but that was their turn. These Pershings outflanked the town from the south, came up on the west side. Or I should say, opportunity fired another 2 companies of Chinese. There's going to be a lot of Chinese. 2 more Chinese, almost human wave kind of attacks. Coming towards them. Again, they killed 2 of them here, and what was left is no longer legally allowed to really, cat attack them, because cat attacks have to be, a certain odds column where they're no longer allowed. The Royal Marine Commandos are now out of their trucks. They're now advancing northwards. Let's see. Baker Company, 1st to the 31st, was able to make their assault into this town, took it, or didn't take it, but cleared the Chinese out of that town, the Chinese scout platoon. And the Chinese are now taking a lot of losses. Not only to the American attacks, but also American opportunity fire as the Chinese launch their attacks. I'm playing the Chinese very, very aggressively here. The end of turn 3. Things are getting a little bit bad now. We do have some Marines pinned down here under Chinese close assault. As the Chinese came in, I did manage to pin down their engineers with opportunity fire. You always want to pin down their engineers whenever you're facing close assault tactics, because when enemy infantry is attacking you and with close assault and they have engineers with them, that gives them an additional odds column on the CRT, or combat results table. So pro tip, if you're ever being cat attacked and there's engineers in there, take out the engineers first, or at the very least pin them down. Again, plenty of suppressive fire from my Pershings. Are continuing to do, they pretty much broke up the rest of this Chinese battalion here. That Chinese rifle platoon is still holding out there, however, and again, more reinforcements for the Chinese are coming out of the northeast, and now we do have 1 Marine rifle platoon legitimately pinned down. If they don't rally, they're going to be in trouble. The good news is we do have British and American mortars now unloaded from their trucks. They're on this high ground. They're able to actually launch some direct fire mortar attacks, which double per Arab Israeli War weapons effectiveness chart, and actually start knocking down and killing some of these more Chinese forces that are just, the Chinese human wave is something you hear about a lot in Korea. I got some bad news. It's a myth. It didn't really happen. It may have looked like a wave to the people who were facing it, but it's kind of an oversimplification of Chinese infantry tactics. All that said, I am pretty much just bum rushing the Americans and British with Chinese infantry attacks. So it's not technically a human wave, but it might as well be, is what we're doing here. Again, you see the first big Chinese assault did finally manage to score at least a pin down or a dispersal. Result here on some Marine rifles. So again, first platoon here of George 2 1st Marines is in a lot of trouble. They are screaming for some support. We have also lost some. The Marine commander is pretty much toast, or at least his jeep section is, along with some trucks, because that column is now under Chinese mortar fire from those mortar positions I mentioned earlier. They destroyed those in turn 2. Fortunately for me, they're now spotted, because there is aerial spotting rules in Panzerleader, and because they were under trees and they fired out of the tree line, and that allowed me to bring in those last 2 Corsairs armed with rockets to take care of at least 2 of those Chinese mortar positions. The Chinese were smart and did not stack all 3 of their mortars in one hex. They dispersed their mortars, so I was unable to kill all of them. At least so far. I have now expended all Marine Corps aerial ordnance. I do still have, however, 6 Corsairs with lots of 50 cals. And that's the difference between that 20A, a value there, and this 30I. These are the 50 cals. These are the 50 cals. You can use those up to 4 times in a Panzerleader game. This is either the bombs or the rockets. In this case, rockets, you can only use that once. and now the plane is dry. So I've used up all my ordnance, all my napalm, all my rockets. I've done a tremendous amount of damage to the Chinese. I don't think I did quite enough, though, because I have now used up, the bad thing about air power, I have now used it all up. At least, you can see all these destroyed, oh wait, those are actually allies. Sorry. You can see all these destroyed Chinese units. We've definitely done a number on the Chinese so far. This is destroyed Allied units so far. Although, technically, so are all these. Hold on, guys. Oh, no! These guys are also destroyed. Let me not cheat here. So a lot of it's just trucks. In fact, 3 of it's just trucks, but we do have 2 actual combat units destroyed. Chinese combat units, a lot more of them. And that's the end of turn 3. And that's where we're going to go ahead and get started for today. I wanted to get the game at least somewhat going before the stream started. So what do we have going on down here in Mr. Chat? Oh, lordy. I like the way firing works in larger battles. Shims puts on, it's not tank versus tank, more company battalion versus company battalion. Panzer Leader will definitely teach you that, Bob. It is not... A 15mm table would fit in like 2, maybe 3 hexes here. So here's a 15mm table in Panzer Leader. Figuring like a 4x6 table or something like that. That's a 15mm table. A 28mm table, like say bolt action, 4x8 or 4x6 is more like that. You can see how big this battle is, and this is a pretty small Panzer Leader battle. That's a lot of Flames of War going on. Flames of War, this table would be about this table would be 100 feet on the side. And you would have, thousands of miniatures on the table. It would look awesome. I'll definitely give you that much. But it would be quite an effort to put on. But Bob Peterson, to your point, this is totally Panzer Leader. What I love about Panzer Leader or Panzer Blitz or Arab Israeli Wars, whenever I say Panzer Leader, I'm talking about that whole family of games. Is it will teach you how combined arms really works and the scales on which it will really work. There are some miniature games that do attempt this. I'm talking about like GHQ Micro Armor, but only because, again, those are 6mm games, and again, those are usually platoon-level games. When you put a 6mm Panther on a table in GHQ Micro Armor, that is usually a platoon of 5 Panthers, and the game does not rely on true line of sight. True line of sight is the Achilles heel of modern miniature gaming. It's why most modern miniature games do not work. I'm sorry, but they don't work. And the reason they don't work is because they rely on true line of sight mechanics. In true line of sight mechanics, the table has to be in scale with the units, or true line of sight doesn't work. The units, the actual miniatures, have to be in scale with the terrain. And once you do that, you can't have platoon-sized pieces. You can't have, What do you think about that, Pyotr? I mean, I know you don't know too much about Korea, but I know you know a lot about miniature gaming. Do you feel like games like Team Yankee or Flames of War or even Bolt Action really capture or encompass the way actual World War II or modern combat really works?
No, not really.
Yeah.
They are fun to play and sometimes demanding, especially when you're playing something more like Battle Group by Pierce brand,
Right.
and all. But basically, they do not because of what you said. The ranges and that stuff is broken in miniatures games. That's why I prefer counters when it comes to playing. Let me say it out loud: real war games for men.
Yeah, I try not to put it that way because I know we get under some people's skin, but I enjoy Flames of War. I mean, it's not my favorite. I definitely enjoy Battle Group. I will totally say that. I think Battle Group comes a lot closer than a lot of miniature games. One of these days, I know I keep saying this. I want to play either Team Yankee or Battle Group in 6mm.
That would be cool.
Yeah, now and on a big like 8x10 table. Now you're going to see something happen. I mean, you're going to get a lot closer that way.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that miniature games are bad or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just the problem with the scale. I love playing, Flames of War. I love playing Team Yankee. I really enjoy playing Bolt Action because it's simple and quite nice. Spinning over there is a thing that I really like. But if you want to simulate something more realistically, you need to play something like Panzer Leader or I don't know, Harpoon maybe.
Oh God. Yeah, I played Harpoon. I mean, I was lucky in life. My dad had a tennis court in the back of his yard. I literally needed a tennis court. I sometimes kid around and I say, oh, this game would work if you played it on a tennis court or a golf course. I've actually done that. So I'm not really kidding when I say that. But obviously, either in a computer or on some sort of a scale, sort of a game map, it tends to work a lot better.
Yeah.
So, okay, back to the comments here. Vorpalbite says, but the Chinese wave attack was impressive in that old black and white movie. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that the Chinese did not use massed infantry attacks. It's just that the phrase human wave tends to conjure up this image of like them literally standing almost shoulder to shoulder and running up there in lines. They would break into platoons and companies of 50 to 100 men and attack from different angles and use suppressive fire to sort of pin down UN positions and then make the charge up the hill. It just wasn't quite as meat-headed as the phrase human wave tends to suggest. I think history has sort of gotten a hold of that whole human wave sort of attack idea in the Korean War and has kind of run with it to an unfortunate degree. So, arrived late. This is Korea. Yes, Novus Templar, thanks very much for coming by. Yes, we are looking at, for people who are new to our chat, we're kind of already halfway through the damn game here, but just for fun, yeah, we're looking at the Chosin Reservoir here in Panzerleader, November 27th, 1950. Now, the Chosin Reservoir runs from the 26th to like December 10th, but the actual battle we're doing today, Task Force Drysdale up Hellfire Valley, a British Army and Marine force pushing up that road to relieve the Hagaru-ri evacuation point, took place 70 years ago today, 27 November 1950. We went through all the background. Obviously, we won't do it again. And yeah, now we are today starting turn 4 of a Panzerleader game that recreates part of this battle. Let's see here. Be careful with that napalm. Last year, I burned down a village. Yeah, we talked about Hue City and the dangers of overusing and collateral damage from overusing support assets. So. Not the difficult. Oh man, I'm like really getting kicked ass on the chat here. Oh my god. Oh my god. Sorry guys. Okay. I want to make sure I get everybody's comments here. Easy Company is my favorite infantry company. Easy Company is my favorite infantry company. Okay. Sergeant Rock is my favorite sergeant. Nice. The Speed 2, it makes them more versatile. I agree, Speedway makes them boring. It makes sense, Bob Peterson, when you're talking about 250 meter hexes. But number one, not only is 150 meter hexes more interesting, it makes the game a hell of a lot more accurate. A lot more accurate on what the weapons can actually do. So we've been playing Panzerleader like this since about 2012. And we've done everything from 1939 Poland to 2003 invasion of Iraq, and so far it's been great. So we no longer really complain about that part. Oh my god! Hello everyone from Sick Hall, Sitrep Podcast. Hello Bill. Hopefully you feel better very soon, and hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. 150 meter hexes is brilliant. Yeah, it fixed a lot. We did have to change some of the artillery rules. We did have to change the stacking rules. And obviously the hex is smaller, so we only put 3 infantry units in a hex instead of 4. And we had to adjust the movement rate on infantry units. I don't like Panzerleader or Panzerblitz games. So spotting firing was too mathematical. Okay, I will admit, Vorpalbite, that the spotting rules in Panzerblitz and Panzerleader were broken. The terrain rules in the original 1970 Panzerblitz was so broken, This is way before the internet, so there were no memes and no trolls back in the day, but there was a little thing called magazines, especially the General Magazine, and conventions back in the early 1970s. Panzerblitz got a reputation for its terrain rules being so broken, i.e. spotting, that they called it Panzerbusch. The game was screwed. Yeah, the game had a lot of problems with it. I will also say that it was pretty much the very first war game of its type in 1969, 1970. And it is the Model T. And nowadays, I mean, a Model T is still a historically significant car. I'll still take a 2020 Ferrari over a Model T. So, obviously, we've given it quite a bit of a facelift here to make it useful for our streams. It's not the difficulty level, it's the spotting rules. Yeah, the spotting rules are tough. They have fixed them in Panzer Leader, and they fixed them even better in Panzer Blitz. Sorry, Arab is really worse. You'll notice, for instance, that my tree hexes. I have tree hexes. You don't have tree hexes in Panzer Blitz or Panzer Leader. You have tree lines that are the borders between hexes. That's good for hedgerows, not really anything else. So I've basically taken the Arab-Israeli Wars, which is edition 3. It starts with Panzer Blitz, that's edition 1. Panzer Leader is the second edition. And then for Arab-Israeli Wars, they got a whole new team. It wasn't just a tweak of the rules. And they rebuilt the game from the ground up. And they fixed a lot. There's a lot broken in Panzer Leader. My favorite game, I often say, when I'm buried in the ground forever, I'm going to be buried with a box of Panzer Leader, so I have something to do in the afterlife. All that being said, it is a broken game. There are major problems with Panzer Leader. Arab-Israeli Wars does fix a lot of it in the rules engine. So what we're really playing here is Arab-Israeli Wars, rules-wise. I was in a micro armor player for decades. Spotting rule is in my thought process. It's also a miniature game. So yeah, spotting rules are going to be different, even though it's the same general unit scale. Be careful with that napalm. Burned up a village. Okay, Thursday, Vietnamese rose up and overran my camp. Okay, I'm catching up on the chat here. Yeah, I apparently missed some comments earlier. Chinese wave attack was impressive in that old black and white movie. Cool. Yes, we talked about Korea, Chosin Reservoir, ice war, 30 degrees below zero. Yeah, with the wind chill factor, some of those reports do say about 10, 20, maybe even 30 degrees below zero. Not only are you in the North Pacific, not only are you in the depth of winter, you're way up in the friggin' mountains. Again, this is what the terrain basically looks like. It's very mountainous, and it's the depth of winter. Northern Pacific. This is not the balmy palm trees and sandy beaches that you see in the Pacific in World War II. Scale and terrain is always subtracted unless you are using swords and spears. Yeah, I should say that problem with scale and miniature gaming is until you get out of black powder weapons. I have you can do one-to-one WYSIWYG kind of, true line of sight miniature battles, swords and shields, spears, all the way through medieval, all the way through Dark Ages, or I should say ancients, Dark Ages, medievals, Renaissance, black powder. Once you get into the 20th century, though, it starts to get tough. The ranges just get too good. Once you get to smokeless powder. Hex and Jim, I linked the game over to a new Facebook page. Hex Encounter Tabletop Wargamers. Awesome, thank you very much. Now we don't have to worry about reading both chats. Yeah, we are definitely blowing up here. I play 6mm. Oh, you do play, Bob. 6mm Flames of War Team Yankee. It still gets subtracted, but it is better. Yeah, it defeats that whole tank park thing that you see, you see in way too many of those games. Awesome. Love that photo of the Pershing tank. Yeah, you guys, Jen will back me up on this. I was doing my research for this game. I was building it yesterday, and when I ran across number one, this photo, and then number two, this is an excerpt from a PDF I was looking at that proves that was pretty much confirmed for me that 1st Battalion, we're looking at 1st Tank Battalion, 1st Battalion Fleet Marine Force, Camp Pendleton. That's part of It's going to be part of 1st Marine Division. Replaced its M4A3 Sherman tanks with Pershings. There were some M4A3s at Chosin. I do have also evidence of that, or proof of that, references to that. But there were also some Shermans, some Pershings here. And once I saw that I was going to get to play with Pershings, I was like, oh, baby. That made my day yesterday. Absolutely made my day. I started laughing and smiling. My girlfriend comes to my office. She's like, "What's the matter?" I'm like, "No, you don't understand." She's like, "Are you looking at porn again?" I'm like, "No, I'm looking at Pershings. It's even better. I want more Pershings." Much better. It's the American Tiger. For those of you who are familiar with Panzerleader, there's the Pershing. It has almost the exact numbers as a German Tiger. It just came out, 2 or 3 years afterwards. A little too late to get into serious action in World War II. I think a Pershing actually got into a gun battle once, like a Pershing, March of 45. It knocked out a Tiger and 2 Mark IVs in about 60 seconds. It's a good tank. Definitely a good tank. By Korea, forget about it. I mean, we've got them all over the place. Just a little too slow. Okay, so we've been talking a whole bunch here. Oh, God. All right, so let's start turn 4. Turn 4, finally, starts with, what are we going to do here? Turn 4 starts, of course, with the Allies. We have our little abbreviated turn sequence here. Call in new artillery. I didn't really put that much indirect artillery in this game. We just have these 2 mortar platoons, and I use them in mostly direct fire, so I'm not really going to worry about it. Oh, I do have to try and rally these. That was during counterattack. I do have to try and rally. No, it happened during opportunity fire. They do not get to rally. Okay, so we're going to go directly to airstrikes. I don't really have any airstrikes left, but I do have these guys who still have their machine gun bullets. I gotta shut down these mortars. I am sick and tired of these damn mortars. All Corsairs. They're all dry on bombs and napalm, but they still have machine gun fire. So I have 6 Corsairs. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 against 3 is 6 to 1. I do have them spotted. They do get +1 for their woods cover. So I'm on the 4 to 1 table because you always round down in favor of the defender. I'm on the 4 to 1 table. I have to add 1 to the die roll. Come on, Corsairs, do it! A 3 becomes a 4, becomes of trees, and you'll notice here a 4 on the 4 to 1 table is X, which in this case means blown up Chinese mortars.
That was an overkill.
No, it wasn't, man. Because, again, outside of my tanks, the Chinese are doing much better than it looks. Outside of those tanks, everything here is soft. Everything is truck. And they have been massacring my trucks. I have lost quite a few trucks already. I'm going to lose some more, and what's going to wind up happening is I'm not going to make it. Because once I lose trucks, even with the road movement rate, I'm not going to get all the way to the top of this map and take this last objective hex by the end of the game. So, in some ways, the Chinese have already won.
Yep, that's what I was trying to say, that the key to victory for the Chinese in this battle is to take out your tracks. You're not going to make it on foot.
Yeah. And one of the ways you're definitely going to do that is with mortars, so I definitely wanted to shut down those mortars. Okay, on to direct fire phase for the Allies. Almost everybody used opportunity fire last turn. We continue to break up these Chinese attacks, which is great, but when you fire during the enemy's movement phase, you can't fire during your own phase because you've basically fired early. So, can't fire. These guys. Okay, 3 and 3 British mortars, 76mm Stokes mortars, U.S. Marine Corps, or actually U.S. Army, sorry. U.S. Army, 81mm mortars, that's a total of 6 points. Mortars double when using direct fire. That's out of Arab Israeli Wars, weapons effectiveness chart. Again, our basic rules engine here is Arab Israeli Wars. So we're looking at 3 plus 3 times 2 equals 12. 2 to 1 against a dispersed Chinese rifle platoon. Oh, sorry, show the webcam. That was a 6. 6 minus 1 for being dispersed equals a 5, but even a 5 is only regular dispersed. That has no additional effect. These mortars have whiffed. I'm sorry to say. Has already fired. That opportunity fire counter covers these 3 hexes. I'm trying to clear this road as best I can. As fast as I can. Okay, I think that's going to be it for direct fire. Oh, I'm sorry, what was the question, Piotr?
I wanted to ask you whether it wasn't a better idea to try to use the mortars on the town hex and try to pin these guys inside.
Possible. But number one, I was just trying to kill him, and you get a -1 bonus when you attack a pinned down unit or a dispersed unit, and also a double D will kill him. So once you get to pinned down, you become much easier to kill. Definitely easier to kill. What I do, I was gonna take out that town next turn, and the reason being, all these guys have already fired. They fired in turn 3 opportunity fire, along with these 3 Persian platoons. So if I pinned them down, I couldn't do anything to follow up with. Is why I didn't drop mortars there on that village, which is an objective hex. I totally get what you're going with. It's the end of turn 4. The game's almost half over. I haven't taken my first objective hex. Again, I've killed plenty of Chinese. I have plenty of sandbags. To other people's point earlier in the chat. So hopefully the game will kind of break loose for me from, going forward. But, yeah, it's not so hot. Not so hot. Tell you what I will do. Oh, no, those are half tracks. I can't do that. They've already fired. These are trucks. Yeah, so the only thing I can really do in my direct fire phase, now that those mortars have whiffed, is try to rally that Marine company. This is important. Marine platoon. Morale A, which means a 1 through a 4 rallies them. 3, thank God. Whew. You do not want to get cat-attacked while pinned down. That is not good. It is not good. Okay, so their fire phase is pretty much getting rid of these opportunity fire counters. Oh no! There we go. Okay, now we go to the American movement phase, or the Allied movement phase. How's that for a hex? 2 hexes of Royal Marine Commandos, again, the stacking limit is 3, are going to move into that hex with those Marine rifles that just rallied, and they're going to cat attack, hopefully, back up here against these guys. They will take opportunity fire going in, however. That is 8 to 8. That is 1 to 1 odds. Oh man, come on, do it. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm turning on webcam. This is Chinese opportunity fire. A 1, damn it. 3 plus 3 plus 2 equals 8 versus their defensive 8. That was a good roll for the Chinese. They did pin down some of those Royal Marines. That's not so good. Moving my... Oh, and now I can't even move in engineers. Damn it. Because I'm overstacked. Okay, things are getting a little crazy on this road. There are rules, and if you pay attention to the rules, things get hairy quick. Like this hex right here is chaos. These Marines, 40 or 50 Marines just got unpinned. These Royal Marine Commandos just got repinned. These guys are still okay. They're going to cat attack, I think. I don't think they can. I have a total of 18 versus 4. That is greater than 1 to 4 odds. This cat attack becomes illegal now. The Chinese have successfully broken up that Royal Marine Commando cat attack. And these Marines cannot help because they took their opportunity fire last turn. These combat engineers could help, except that hex is now overstacked. I cannot move a 4th infantry unit into that hex. But what I can do, just so the British do something, is launch a cat attack with the combat engineers into this hex. That's going to pretty much preempt these Americans here, but just to kind of get the game going. I now have 7 against 6. That is 1-to-1 odds. Becomes 2-to-1 odds because my attack includes combat engineers. British engineers are awesome. So, flamethrowers, Bangalore torpedoes, satchel charges. Here we go. 7 versus 6 is 1-to-1, becomes 2-to-1. Subtract 2 from the die roll for the cat attack. Subtract 3 from the die roll because he's dispersed. So it becomes 2-to-1, subtract 3 from the die roll. All I need is a double D. You'll notice he's immediately killed. Even if I roll a 6, -1, -2, -3, I get to double dispersal. I don't even need to pick up a piece of plastic. Those Chinese are toast. Long live the Queen. Oh no. And that is another destroyed unit. Okay, so the army gets there to do an overrun or a cat attack and there's nobody left. Oh man. We missed our chance. These guys can still use split move and fire, so I might move them. I don't want to move them too far forward while the infantry are still hung up back in this town. But I will fire up that slope next turn here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Technically illegal. So to Bob's question, road movement rate. Okay, so split move and fire rule. Even after you fired, you can still move half of your movement, which is 8. So half of my movement is 4. Doubled on roads. So I can technically move 8 hexes. The problem is, in Arab Israeli War rules, you cannot use the road movement rate if there's more than 2 units in the hex. Because what that basically means is your guys have to go around the road because it's clogged up with tanks. So technically speaking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I moved more than half, and I used the road movement rate there. That 3rd tank can't quite get in there, though. So that's an actual legal move. A legal move. Alright. Using split move and fire rule and strict interpretation of the road movement rules from Arab Israeli Wars. What other movement can I do from units that did not fire? Getting more of my trucks out of the way. Before I lose any more trucks. I can't afford to lose too many trucks. Okay, these trucks do have partial line of sight. So in Panzer Leader, sometimes you'll see on the range factor 2-star. So what that means is that the unit has half firepower out to double its range. Its range is 2, and it has an attack factor of 2. These trucks have 50 cals. That star means that it can fire at half firepower out to double its range. It has partial firepower out to double range. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is double its range. I can only fire 1 point. I have 2 trucks in there, so it's going to be a total of 2 points. That's kind of pointless. 1 to 3. Is that even worth it? Even if I get a 1, I'm only going to get a -1 to 0. So no, never mind. I'm not going to do that. Also, I'm not going to give away my position. Okay, that will pretty much wrap things up. I'm sorry to say. He fired. They definitely fired. Get this British commander off of my friggin'... Get him down in the gully before he gets blown up. Okay, cool. So that'll wrap things up. Alright, Piotr, what do you think of my chances here? We're going to start Chinese turn 4. I haven't made much progress geographically. However, I've knocked out about at least a third, if not half, of the Chinese force. So I'm hoping that the game starts to break loose from here. I do not think, however, I'm going to take all 5 objective X's. I might get 3. before the end of turn 10.
If you have unlimited time, basically it's manageable, but with this scarce number of tracks left and a lot of roadblocks on the Chinese side, it's going to be hard. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Right?
Especially when you took the commander out of the hill.
Oh yeah, I mean not much of the now that I took out those mortars, the Chinese don't really have any long-range weapons. That's why this game is almost like a good solitaire game. Once the Chinese set up, they have no long-range weapons, they have no real mobility. It's pretty much a setup, and then can the Allies, or can the United Nations get up the road in time? It's almost a solitaire game at this point. So we didn't really have an opponent planned for today's stream, everybody, but Piotr called me like 20 minutes before the game, and before the stream, he's like, "Do you have an opponent?" I'm like, "Not really. I don't even know if I super need one." But yeah, if you want to hang out in the chat, certainly. Or I should say in the stream. Okay, so Chinese turn 4. Good grief. They all took opportunity fire, so I can't use them. I'm going to try to rally these engineers. They need a 1 or a 2 because they are morale C. He does not make it. I'm going to try to rally those rifles there in 1916. He does not make it. Tanks. Honestly, there's not a lot else to move. I can back up from this hex and hide from these Pershings, but that just opens up the objective hex.
There's not much to do, actually, with the Chinese right now. These guys in the village are sitting ducks and like, at least the tanks are gone.
Yeah. Hey, look, we chased away the tanks. Yay! You got 150 Marines right behind you, son. And they are not happy. They are cold. They don't want to be here. They are pissed off. They're finally unpinned, and they did not use opportunity fire this turn. I got bad. Mr. Chinese Rifle Platoon, I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Okay, Allied or UN turn 5. We start off with direct fire. Or technically, resolve airstrikes first. Okay, so I've used one Corsair airstrike. I'm just going to use one Corsair and just say times 6. Just pretend this is 6, guys, for my Corsairs. Although, it's so much fun. It's so much fun to have 6 Corsairs on the table. You know what I'm going to do? Bear with me super fast, guys. Make this guys a little bit easier to move. Because I made these Corsair counters right before the stream today, and I don't want to hide them. They're fun.
Let me guess.
And they're Corsairs, man. I'm trying to open up... So this is my second machine gun fire. Again, I only have 4 of these. This is my second one. I've got a total of 18 points against 6. That is 3 to 1 against a dispersed unit. So 3 to 1, subtract 1. I need a double D. Even a 6 will kill them. So those Corsairs just straight out execute that platoon. Guys in the chat, let me know if you have any rules questions. I'm going kind of quick here. I've been playing Panzer Leader since, I was 14. That was a long time ago, I'm sorry to say. So I'm going kind of quick here. But if anyone has any rules questions, let me know. Because Science Teacher asks, is it ever good to get cat attacked? Believe it or not, sometimes yes. If you can make the enemy come to you and you have good opportunity fire, especially if you have set up a decent position, like on the high ground with 50 cal support, more 50 cal support, and 2 batteries of medium mortars, yeah, it's not bad to get cat attacked because the enemy has to come at you and you get first crack at him through the magic of opportunity fire. And damn, he tends to take a lot of damage with opportunity fire. So I know what you're saying, but sometimes it's kind of okay. I think in the 50s, the British chieftain was the king of all the tanks. Um, except I don't know if the chieftain was out in the 50s. Are you talking about the Centurion? The chieftain may have come out at the very end of the 50s. I'm not sure when the chieftain actually came out. If you're talking about the Centurion, I might agree with you. But person in the chat. Call for helicopter transport. I don't know if there were too many helicopters at Chosin. And what few helicopters, I know we've all seen MASH, we all love MASH, and helicopters were used in Korea, obviously, but we're talking about like a very, very small percentage. And almost always in a transport, observation, or medical evacuation role. There were no gunships, to my knowledge, in Korea. In fact, even I often kind of crack on movies and TV shows as being terribly inaccurate, and that's almost always the case. But even if you watch most MASH, I kind of binged MASH a couple months ago. At least seasons 4 through 11, because seasons 1 through 3 are pretty terrible. I like the second cast a lot better than the first cast. Most of the time, it's not helicopters bringing wounded to the 407 7th. It's usually trucks and buses, and that's one of the things MASH actually does get semi-correct. It's not usually helicopters. Everyone knows that iconic opening, credit scene, but it's usually trucks. All right, so where was I? Okay, we just did our airstrikes. Now we're going to do some direct fire. I'm going to save these guys for cat attack, more cat attacks. But I want to do something. Okay, I think I'm going to try and kill those engineers with my mortars. 6 plus 6, 2 to 1, subtract 1 from the die roll. Basically, I'm looking for a 4 down. Please give it to me. A 3, that does it. And it's some dead engineers. And that's these 2 guys fired. Oh, technically, I should be honest. Not that it super matters, but these mortars have now fired out of that tree line several times. They are hella spotted. He doesn't really have anything he can do about it, but this Chinese recon platoon and this Chinese command section up there totally see those American and British mortars. Alright. Now we're looking at 50 cals. We're still in the direct fire phase. I have many 50 cals. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be 2 points from these trucks. 1 point each because of the double range rule. 1, 2. I can't see through that building, so I can't do that. Damn, there's so little in here. 2 points from this British machine gun section. 1, 2. 1, 2. That's going to give me 4. That's still not enough. Oh, 2 points from the 50 cal on this British command jeep. The British commander is on the back of his jeep right now, and he is operating that 50 cal, shooting 1, 2, 3. That's only going to be 1 more point. Again, the jeep has the same 2-star half firepower double range rule. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, 6. I have exactly 6 points. 1, 2, 3. American Commander Jeep, American Army Commander Jeep, the Marine Corps Commander Jeep's just been destroyed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A total of 6 points against this submachine gun section. I'm going to get 1 to 1. I'm hoping to pin somebody down in preparation for a cat attack. I need a 3 down. This is long-range, massed 50 caliber machine gun fire. 1! Pinned him! Let me move this down so there's less scrolling. Alright, so he's pinned down. That's fire and maneuver. So now that he's pinned, Baker Company, 1st Battalion, 31st U.S. Infantry is going to now do a cat attack. And they're going to take a lot less opportunity fire going in. Alright, meanwhile, let me move some Marines. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. So we're sort of flanking the town, and we're going to attack it from the back. That is going to cost us a little bit of opportunity fire. That's going to be 2 versus 4. That's 1 to 2 odds. 5, no effect. So he's now taking opportunity fire to no effect. Now we can have that assault going. Marines are tired of your bullshit, Mr. Chinese. Take your Kung Pao chicken and push it somewhere. Not to be outdone, he fired, so he can't help. In come some Royal Engineers. In come some British Royal Marines. And they're going to be helped out with a converging attack from Americans. Actually, 1, 2, 3 versus 4. Let me give the Chinese all their due. 3 versus 4 is 1 to 2 odds. 5, no effect. So now the Chinese have taken opportunity fire out of both of these hexes. Obviously, submachine gun guy can't help because he's pinned. Or I should say submachine gun platoon. So this position here, hex 2115, is under converging 50 cal fire. Sorry, that wasn't that. I didn't fire these two. 50 cal fire, 50 cal, 50 cal, 50 cal, 50 cal. Those, actually, these weren't 50 cals. These were like Vickers 30 cals and Bren guns. But they're under all that machine gun fire. And as they were pinned down, Royal Marines attacked from the south, backed up by Royal Engineers, and they were flanked from behind. And now they're going to be in a convergent cat attack by, again, Baker Company, 1st Battalion, 31st Infantry. So I know whenever we have Panzer Leader on the game, and Piotr, you can kind of probably attest to this, it's often very slow. I'm kind of playing fast Panzer Leader here, just to kind of show people how the game is normally played when everyone's really familiar with the system. And by everyone, I mean me. Okay, so cat attacks take place at the very end of the turn. Now all units that did not move are going to go ahead and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me get some army trucks here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Because again, he's also climbing a hill. So he's really slow. Get that truck up there. They're going to pick up those mortars and move them next turn. I have to set up for that. Panzer Leader is always a game, guys, that you're playing at least several turns in your head at once. I don't think those Pershings, they were there last turn, so now they get to fire this turn. Their targets have run away. So they can't really climb that slope, it's too steep. And by that I mean when you move from center dot. This might have been part of Bob's question earlier. The way I draw my maps is when you move from center dot to center dot. Oops, sorry about that. Center dot to center dot. Again, the center dot always governs the hex. And you cross 2 elevation lines, it's considered a cliff or a slope that is impassable. So this hex to that hex, impassable, impassable, impassable. This slope is much more gentle. When you go from one center dot to the second center dot, you're only crossing 1 elevation line. It will slow you down. It does cost extra movement points to go up that slope, but you do not. It is actually legal. However, some of these slopes are actually illegal. You literally can't walk or climb up those hills unless you have some sort of special rule. Like this kind of slope right here, this is basically point to hoe. So unless you're talking about U.S. Rangers with special equipment that are trained to do an actual cliff assault, that's not going to happen. But that's going to be in your scenario special rules. That's not happening here. So for this scenario, that kind of hexes, or that kind of hex transition is straight out illegal. Much less for a Sherman, which is not, for a Pershing, which is not exactly the fastest tank in the world. Also, I don't want to get my tanks too far ahead of my infantry. But you know what? I'm running out of time, too. That's going to set me up for a cat attack with engineers. So I'm taking a little bit of a risk there, but I'm trying to speed up my advance. Okay, this guy also did not move, so he's going to go 1, 2, 3. He's now on the road. 4, 5. He's going to offer some fire support for when I get cat attacked. Everybody else is either fired or setting up for a cat attack, so I'm going to go ahead and say, cool, we're going to go ahead and start the cat attack. Those Royal Marine Commandos, those guys were pinned last turn. As part of their attack phase, they're going to go ahead and try and rally. They're Morale A, which means they need a 1 through a 4 as infantry. Morale A infantry. A is obviously the best. They're Royal Marine Commandos. These guys are friggin' elite. 6, they fail. They do not rally. Something happened. The wrong sergeant got killed. And that platoon remains pinned down. Oof, that's not good. Okay, that now moves us over to close assault phase. This is going to be fun. A whole Marine rifle company with machine gun support is cat-attacking you from 2 sides. 17 versus 6. That is just short of 3 to 1. Damn it. And I don't have any engineers, so it's still 2 to 1. Subtract 2 from the die roll, add 1 for towns, so it's a net subtract 1 on 2 to 1 table. 3 becomes a 2 on the 2 to 1 table. He's only pinned down. Damn it, that guy's holding on. Hopefully this one will go better. 4, 4, and 2 is a total of 10, 14, 17 versus 12. 1 to 1. However, 2 to 1 with engineers. Subtract 2 from the die roll. 3, subtract 2 from the die roll, becomes a 1. That stack is eliminated. Oops. I'm trying to keep track of my casualties here. Okay, I don't even know what the hell happened. Alright, there we go. So the Marines kind of fell short, but the Army and the British scored. So I await your jokes. Good job, British and Army. They eliminated their objective, and the Marines were not quite able to do it. Okay, over now to the Chinese turn. Chinese turn is going to be pretty simple. Number 1, we're going to try and rally this dude. He needs a 1 or a 2. A 6, he fails. So hopefully the Marines will be able to take him out next turn. Here's where I'm not so pleased. Marine armor close assaulted by engineers and Chinese infantry. Reinforced. Oh no! Okay, as these two guys kind of come down here to help out, these Pershings are going to open fire. 45 points versus 12 is 3 to 1. I'm trying to pin down as many guys as I can. 45 to 12 is 3 to 1. To Vorpal's point, yeah, I understand there's a little bit of division in Panzerleader. The good news is you get real good at it. So 45 versus 12 is, again, 2 6s versus my 3 15s. Normally, A-class weapons are halved against soft targets, again, but we're using the dual ammunition rule, where you don't double like H-class weapons at point-blank range, but at point-blank range you do not have. This is HE, fragmentation, flechette rounds, stuff like that, fired from the Pershings. Tank-to-tank combat almost never happened in Korea. So they made sure that these Pershings and Shermans and everybody else that was there, I know some Churchills were even there for the British. Everything is armed with double-class ammunition. Was the map an artist's conception or topographical? I will be right back and answer your question. Would you put this game in the same category as chess? Alright guys, I'll answer everyone's questions as soon as I find out whether or not I have lost any of my marine tanks here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. But I am watching the chat and I'll answer everyone's questions. This is the Chinese last real chance to do some decent damage here. So 3-1 on both those rifle platoons. A5, they are pinned down. They are not killed. But at least they don't get to counterattack me. Now we are looking at 6 total versus 36. Holy shit, I just saved them. 10 versus 36 would have been 4-1. Makes that 3-1 because of engineers. You know what, I'm going to allow this just because there's engineers in there. I think I made the Chinese a little too weak. But normally 6 versus 36 is 1-6 odds. Once an attack becomes worse than 1-4 odds, it is straight out illegal in Panzerleader. Now, the reason I'm kind of allowing it is because engineers bump you up a whole odds column. So I'm going to say that these engineers knock them up to the 1-4 table. Subtract 2 from the die roll for the counterattack means that if they roll a 1 or a 2, those tanks are pinned down. A 6, they failed. Alright, good news for the Marines. Here's the not so good news. Those tanks have fired. Okay. Now let me get over to the chat questions here. That would be denoted with an A star on the counter then. Yes, Bob, that is absolutely correct. However, that is my special rule. And here's why that rule was created. In Panzerleader. Okay, I'll take one further step back to answer Bob's question about the A star weapons class. Number one, the A star weapons class dual purpose ammunition is totally my own rule. Here's why I made it up. When you're looking at a World War II tank game, and Piotr, let me know if you agree with this. Okay, you're looking at a World War II tank game. Here's a quick litmus test to tell you if the game is any good or not. The Tiger 1 has an L56 88mm gun. The Panther has a 75mm L70 gun. Which gun do you think should have the better anti-tank firepower value? For anti-armor work, for shooting holes through enemy tanks. The L70-75, the Panther, or the L56 Tiger? Panzerleader gives you a 16 for the Panther, only a 15 for the Tiger, which is absolutely correct. The shorter barreled 88 is not as good at shooting through enemy tanks as the longer barreled 75, even though it's a smaller gun. It's all about the length of the gun. All about the length of the gun. Okay? Now, that's great for shooting at tanks. The problem is, Panzerleader has the rule where A-class weapons are halved against infantry. So, a Tiger has a 15 divided in half, and a Panther has a 16 divided in half. Long story short, take your first shot. All of a sudden, a Tiger is less deadly against infantry than a Panther. That is an unfortunate side effect of the game. That is not true. Tigers terrified Allied infantry with damn good reason. So we came out with that. It's a dual class ammunition rule. Basically, you don't get the full H benefits, which is doubled against soft targets at close range. We just say, look, if you have the A star next to your weapons class, that little asterisk next to your weapons class, it just means that when you're at point blank range, an A-class weapon does not get cut in half. So if those were assault guns, like if those were, priests, or if those were M7 priests, or Angels of Death, those are the Shermans with the 105mm assault howitzer, or the British Royal Marine Centaurs, which we saw turn the tide in our Gold Beach landing game, then that value gets doubled. It's a certain class of whatever the number is, H, not A. That gets doubled. This is kind of halfway between the two. They don't get halved, they don't get doubled, just leave them in the middle. And that's why I'm getting 45 on those defense rolls, or opportunity to fire rolls. Advanced squad leader gives the Panther a better penetration too. Yeah, that's totally what you're supposed to do. So pick up the game, look at the Panther's attack value versus tanks, mind you, versus tanks. Look at the Tiger 1's, not the Tiger 2, Tiger 1's penetration value. And if the Tiger with the 88 shoots holes in tanks better than the Panther 75, put the game back on the shelf and slowly back away, never look at it again. It's wrong. Now, if you go to the Tiger 2, same size gun, 88 millimeter, or I should say the same caliber gun, but it's an L70 or an L71. Piotr, do you remember if the Tiger 2 has an L70 or 71? I think it's an L70. How long is the Tiger 2's 88s? Do you remember? Or are you still on the call?
Yes, it's been.
Oh, I can barely hear you.
I couldn't hear your question, so if you could
Oh,
please...
sorry. We were talking about different penetration values for the Tiger 1, Tiger 2, and Panther.
Yes, I heard that.
Okay, cool. So if you can, how long was the Tiger 2's 88 millimeter? It was either an L70 or a 71, something like that, if memory serves.
I think you're correct. I can't remember that, but I think it was the 71, I believe.
I think, yeah, it was definitely long. It was and that's why you see the Tiger 2's 88 millimeter gun is way better than the Panther 75. But it should go from the Tiger 1's L56 88mm to the Panther's L70 75mm to the Tiger 2 best of class in the 88mm. I think in this game it has a 20. So you'll notice that a Tiger 2's 88mm gun is better by a great deal, by 25%, than the Pershing's 90mm gun. And again, it's all about the length. Because length...
Yeah, it was L71.
It was 71. Okay, cool. Yeah, because length of the barrel equals muzzle velocity, and muzzle velocity equals speed. And when it comes to tank guns, and whether or not it penetrates armor, one half mass times velocity squared. That is whether or not you are alive or dead. Kinetic energy delivered on target is 1/2 mass times velocity squared. It's all about the speed. How fast is that shell moving when it hits you is whether or not it's going to get through your armor. Anyway, that was a very long-winded explanation as to the weapons class on these Pershings. Now, even though it's a 90mm, it's not quite as good as a German 88. And even a 1950. And I'm sorry to say that's probably pretty accurate. Okay, so we've now done Chinese attacks. Kicking over to turn 6. I don't think we're going to finish the whole game here, guys. We've already been up for 2 hours. And I know it's a solitaire game. You guys are literally watching me play with myself on Twitch. But again, I really wanted to do Chosin Reservoir because of the anniversary date and so on. I would ask if Piotr wants to take over for the Chinese, but Piotr, do you even want to play the Chinese at this point? Because there's not a whole lot to do here. It doesn't look like.
Admittedly, you want to win.
Right? Okay, Novus Templar, would you put this game in the same category as chess? Was another question we had over there on Twitch. Oh boy. No. Chess is way too elegant. So people ask me that sometimes, and Piotr, maybe you can weigh in on this as well. I don't mean to constantly take up all the oxygen in the conversation here.
Okay, go ahead, and I will.
When it comes to comparing games like Panzer, or really any war game, tabletop, miniature, computer war game, a true war game to a non-war game like chess or checkers or who knows what, Parcheesi, Chutes and Ladders. I'm playing around here. What's the best game? And people often say, "Oh, chess is a war game." I would say that's almost an insult to chess. I don't consider chess a war game. I consider chess a strategy game, and a war game is like a subgenre of of strategy game. War games are much less elegant than chess by design. Fundamental game design differences in chess. You can push your opponent around if you get ahead of him in like a certain kind of a decision cycle. You can especially if you get him into check a couple times, you're literally forcing him to make certain moves. But that's more of a leverage thing. There's no brute force in chess. You cannot gangbang a queen with 5 of your pawns in one turn in chess. You can do that in Panzerleader. Panzerleader or most other war games have an element of brute force because it's trying to simulate to one degree or another warfare, which has, of course, a brute force in it. In chess, you can only move one of your pieces at a time. And while there might be a certain activation mechanic in some war games, you can almost always move more than one of your pieces at a time. And chess doesn't really have a random factor that most war games have. When a queen takes a rook, the rook does not get a chance to fight back. It doesn't have to make a die roll to see if it survives the attack. So I would almost say, if you're looking for a game, when you're trying to explain to people like what it is you do, like what your hobby's about, and they say, oh, you play war games, is that like chess? Oh, you play war games, is that like Risk? No, Risk is not a war game. No, it's not. I'm sorry. I almost go with like no limit poker. Poker is probably the normies game that is most like a war game. And guys in the chat, let me know if you agree with that. And here are my points that kind of support that, at least in my opinion. Number one, there's a random element in poker that there isn't in many other games. Number two, please remember that in poker, your units, air quote, your actual playing pieces, are not your cards. They are your chips. Who cares about your cards? What really matters, especially in no limit poker, is your stack of chips. That's your weight. That's your resource that you can commit to push people around the table, is your chips. Again, that's why I specified no limit of poker. Also, most war, and therefore most war games, have an element of deception. You have to lie to your opponent. You have to deceive. You have to straight out lie to people in war games. You know, you have to fool your opponent into something that is not going to happen. And there's, again, that element of brute force. When it really matters in a no-limit poker, you go all in. You push that whole stack of chips in there, and you literally shove everybody else off the table, or force them into making a decision for all their chips. You know, you can't move all your pieces at once and just bum rush the table in chess. You can do that in poker, and you can do that in most war games. So I would say that most war games, and here's where I'll open up the floor here, most war games are, if you have to pick a normie game that most war games are closest to, I go with no limit poker. And what do people say in the chat? And what do you say, Piotr?
I really like your take on the chess when it comes how you explained it, because I had something different in mind. When I think of chess, I think of equal terms, equal armies, and equal opportunities to do the same damage. Each unit, unit has the same abilities
value,
as your
basically.
opponent, attack value as your opponent's one. There is no terrain, there is no, different size of the army and stuff like that. And that's why I wouldn't compare this game to chess. It's Panzerleader is the Panzerleader Deluxe or Riscani edition is quite elegant, but it's still hard. My take when it comes to comparing war games to something wouldn't be poker. I never never thought of poker, but I don't know how I would compare war games in order to explain it to someone. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, the go-to is chess. People think of chess and they think of these games and think, oh, they're kind of the same. I actually go with, that's just my opinion. I go with no limit poker. Again, it has to be no limit, because that's where your brute force comes in.
Yeah, that's quite a good comparison.
But also, I'm terrible at chess. I was 15 years old. I lost a game of chess to my 8-year-old brother in like 6 moves. I am atrocious at chess. So I don't like to compare anything to chess because I'm terrible at chess. I mean, I really suck at chess. Once I sit down at a chessboard and like, oh, you design war games, you play war games, you'll be good at this. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what? What do you mean I only get to move one piece a turn? What nonsense is this? And I'm terrible at it. Okay, so we have some more comments in the chat here. Bob Peterson says, I appreciate how you breathed new life into a game and enjoyed as a kid in the 70s and made it relevant with your clever modifications. Bob, thanks very much. I appreciate the kind words. I am standing on the shoulders of giants. Obviously, Jim Dunnigan, the absolute god of wargaming. I mean, no offense, but I hear people talk about Rick Priestley and Featherstone and all these other guys, and they're talking about, oh, these guys are like the gods of wargaming. I'm like, dude, have you ever even heard of Jim Dunnigan? Have you ever heard of SSI? Have you heard of Avalon Hill? Jim Dunnigan won every single award there was in wargaming since the 1960s. He won them all through the 70s. He won them, into the early 80s when he started his own company. It was either SSI or SPI. When they ran out of awards to give him, in 1999, they gave him a new award. They made up an award for him called Game Designer of the Millennium. The Millennium. So no one's winning that award again until the year 3000, technically. I mean, Jim Dunnigan is just, a fantastic game designer. And now, war game designers like Bob Miranda, modern day guys who work for, guys like Decision Games, work for, most Hex Encounter kind of games, strategy games and game designer companies now, they strive to win a new award called the Jim Dunnigan Award. So Jim Dunnigan, the original inventor of Panzerblitz and, by extension, Panzer Leader, really deserves, obviously, most of the credit. Since then, people have been breathing life into this game as early as 1973. 1973, I can't remember the guy's name. Somebody sat down on his dining room table. This is before they even came out with Panzer Leader for the West. Panzer Blitz was all Eastern Front. Russians and Soviets, 41 to 45. Panzer Leader for the Western Front came out in 1974. Before Panzer Leader even came out, somebody in 1972 or 73 sat down with Desert Rats, and they tried to create Panzer Blitz for the Northern Desert, or for the Western Desert, North Africa. So people have been doing this for almost as long as I've been alive. They've been doing it since before Panzer Leader came out, and then, of course, Arab-Israeli Wars came out. That was a totally different team. I don't think Jim Dunnigan was involved in that. They fixed a lot of the problems, and even then, people immediately started talking and redesigning. We have all the guys on, let's see here. We have gregspanzerblitz.com. Great site. Find it. If you love Panzer Leader, Panzer Blitz, find gregspanzerblitz.com. That's exactly how you spell it. He's still adding to it very, very sporadically, but it's most of it's there. We've already talked about it, imaginative-strategist.com. Northeast Atlanta, Georgia. Northeast Atlanta Gaming Group is a little WordPress page. Brian Train, who also I talk to sometimes. I have a casual friendship, I'm proud to say. He designed Desert Leader in the year 2000. I can't remember if this was before or after he got his job at the State Department. People have been designing new Valor Victory. I'm sorry. People have been designing new Panzer Blitz and Panzer Leader scenarios. Alan Arvold in the General Magazine, Byron Henderson, again, who I talk to on a pretty regular basis. We are all over Board Game Geek. Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader, Arab-Israeli Wars. They are not the youngest girls at the ball as far as gaming goes, but they are alive and well. And we're always tinkering with it. We're always fixing it. We're always making up our own little scenarios, our own rule sets, our rules modifications. And we still keep this game alive. It has been out of print since God knows when. Another thing to check out, if you're interested, is Oh God, Toshash Miniatures. Tosasch, I think is how you spell it. You have to do a little Google foo, but it's Toshash Miniatures. They came out with a game called TCME, Tactical Combat Middle East, and it's basically Panzer Leader for the Gulf War, Panzer Leader for the Gulf War, and Panzer Leader for the for 2003 Iraqi Freedom. It's sort of like a stripped down, cleaned up version of Panzer Leader, but with all new A-10s, B-52s, stealth bombers, I should say stealth fighters, like F-117s, you know what I mean. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff out there, guys. So I appreciate your comment, Bob, but I am hell no not the only, and hell no not the first. There are tons of people out there that are keeping this system alive. Well past its 50th birthday, and yeah, we're not slowing down anytime soon. Just because Big Macs and Whoppers have sold billions doesn't make them the best burgers on the market. Yeah, we literally had a little bit of this argument on the Cult of Games radio show a couple days ago. The question on the table was, why is GW always so successful? I'm like, are they? Just because they make a lot of money? I guess if you're a businessman, yeah, that's all that really matters, but they certainly don't make the best games. Not even close.
Oh, that's true. And when you think of games like Panzer Leader, Panzer Blitz, or I don't know, BattleTech, these are the games that you want to come back to. This is the origin of wargaming for me. Not in a literal sense, but you know what I mean. It's something that you always go back to. You compare other games to this, at least I do. And actually the community updates, tweaks, fixes that you were talking about make this game even more alive than it was in the 70s, I believe.
Yeah. So back in the 70s, Panzer Blitz had a bad reputation. They used to call it Panzer Bush. Because if you did not use opportunity fire, and in the original Panzer Blitz rules, opportunity fire was an optional rule. They did include it, but they didn't require it. And can you imagine Panzer Leader without opportunity fire? I mean, movement's free. Everyone's dead. Everyone gets overrun. Everybody gets cat attacked. It's totally gonna break. And that's also not how warfare works. Some people don't like Panzer Blitz because they say, "Oh, I don't like games where you can't move and fire in the same turn." Have you been in the service, or have you? I mean, I've never been in combat, but do you know much about how combat works? You know, you never move and fire at the same time. You're in a position shooting at the enemy when he moves, usually toward you. Now, of course, that's changing a little bit with technology. We have a whole generation of tanks now that can fire and move at the same time. How even then they're not firing at full speed. They're, even top of the line battle tanks, the Leopard, the Charlie 2, the Abrams, are usually limited to 30 miles an hour or so if they want that first round, first hit, first kill, capability. So even with top of the line technology, units don't really fire and move in the same turn. Again, I think a good war game is less about what you can do and more about what you can't do. And as far as what kind of game company makes the best game, or I think a lot of that comes down to what you enjoy in the hobby. I mean, Panzer. Okay, here's a great example. The discussion on Cults of Games radio show the other day was, or at least the consensus seemed to be, GW is very successful and 40K is very successful because of its collectability. You get to go out there and they say, here's a universe, play in it, have fun in it, buy a bunch of miniatures, and when you get done with that, buy some more miniatures. And there's always something new to check out, there's always something new to buy, hobby, build, paint. And okay, that's great. I mean, I'm not arguing that point. It's just that there's like another pole, or another end, whatever you want to call it, another starting point, ending point, another way to view the idea of wargaming in general. Panzer Blitz was a box you could buy in 1971 for $10 in those days and game for the rest of your life. There was nothing to collect, which some people would say makes it less successful. I say it makes it more successful. But again, that's just a different opinion. It's a different it's a different kind of hobby. That's definitely sure.
Oh yeah, that's true. I didn't listen to the radio podcast, but I must say that the GW universe is successful as a universe, not as a game, because the game is broken. Let's be true about it. You have armies that are tweaked constantly just in order to sell more miniatures, and then they are, corrected, so to speak. And but the game is broken, but the universe is not. And here you have a game that was broken, but was being and is still being, updated and mended by the community so that it works for
Yep.
everybody. That's the difference.
So I mean, I understand the point. I mean, as a business venture, I mean, let's face it, Avalon Hill's out of business.
Yeah.
They've been bought by God. Who are they? Who are they even owned by now? They don't own. They no longer own the Pants Leader license. That's owned by Multi-Man Publishing now. But Avalon Hill in general is owned by Wizards of the Coast, who's owned by WizKids, who's owned by somebody, who's owned by somebody, who's owned by Hasbro. I mean, and GW, of course, is a strong independent company. So, looked at from a business perspective, absolutely. But did they create a successful game? No. When they have to release a new rule set a new edition every 2 years, and each one seems to be a little bit worse than the rest, I don't know. That's not really up to me to say. I'm not really that familiar with it. But when you have to, set up a new rule set like every couple of years, I don't know. Is it either you're just trying to sell me more books, or your system continues to be broken? I don't know. I don't know. We got off on one hell of a tangent there. Yeah, Vorpal, it eventually leads up to Hasbro. I just don't know how many steps there are between Avalon Hill and Hasbro. There's a bunch. There's Wizards of the Coast, WizKids, Parker Brothers, Milton Bradley. I don't know. There's several staircases, or corporate levels between Avalon Hill and Hasbro. Bob Peterson says, I agree. A good war game makes a player make tough decisions. Yeah, do this or do that. Rarely both. Totally. I played Twilight 2000. Oh man, I played Twilight 2000 way back in the day. Oh god, yeah. GMT is still kicking. GMT still makes really good games. They made Twilight Struggle recently. GMT has survived the great Hex Encounter Holocaust of the late 80s, and they're definitely still around. They still make good games. Let's see. Vorpalbite says, I play Twilight 2000. Fired from the hip. I'm running every time. With Twilight 2000, Vorpalbite, I'm not surprised. I hear that it has undergone a bit of a cleanup lately, but the old 1980s rules of Twilight 2000, I played that game. Piotr, have you ever played Twilight 2000? Have you ever heard of that?
I heard of the game, never had a chance to play it.
I only say that because it starts off in southern Poland. Yeah. Is where it starts off at. It starts off in the far, far future of 1995. It's an old game. But 1995 was like the murky, distant, foggy future. Who knows what's going to happen that far in the future? When World War III breaks out, it lasts for 5 years. It kills half the world's population. Back then there were only 4 billion people on the planet, and it kills 2 of them. So 2 billion people are left, and basically what's wound up happening is the Russians are losing the war because they're fighting NATO and the Chinese at the same time. And American, German, NATO troops are now invading Poland. Actually, they're through most of Poland. Some of them are almost into Belarusia. And that's when civilization just falls apart. It's not a war game, it's a role-playing game. And you start off with, I think it's 5th U.S. Infantry in most scenarios. And you are at a place called, I think it's Kalitz, Poland. And you're trying to get back to Krakow. Is like the first big objective for your characters in Twilight 2000. Old game, definitely a lot of fun, hella complicated. So when Vorpalbite says he plays from the hip, or he fires from the hip, I totally, I'm not surprised at all. Okay.
I have.
Go ahead.
Speaking of, not easy games. I have some ASL inbound, so I'm waiting for the advanced squad leader mayhem to start at my
God.
home approximately in 1 week.
Advanced squad leader. Did I not have enough fun with you playing Valorant Victory? You want to go to the hell that is Advanced Squad Leader? Advanced Squad Leader is a great game. It just suffers from BattleTech syndrome. It's a great game at its core. Too many people added too much to it, and it quickly becomes unwieldy. Which is part of the fun of Advanced Squad Leader, but also what eventually breaks the game. And it kind of collapsed in the 80s, and that's where Barry Doyle got started with his Valorant Victory system. He says, I love Valorant, I love Advanced Squad Leader. I can never get anybody to play this with me because the game is too hard, so I'm going to make a simpler version of it that is much more accessible to beginning players. It's better for the 21st century attention spans that we tend to have nowadays. And I'm going to offer it for free for people to print and play. So, oh, by the way, speaking of Valorant Victory, guys, another side tangent to the side tangent to the side tangent. I have started to post my Somalia 1993 expansion counters on Board Game Geek on Valorant Victory. People have been asking for it, so we are starting to put those up here.
No, that's cool.
It's a little slow because there's an approval process from Board Game Geek for uploading documents. But the first piece is up. The second piece should be up in the next day or two. And I'm currently building vehicles. So again, people in the chat and people in the Sitrep community in general, you have been asking about me printing out or offering counter sheets for my Valorant Victory expansions. I have heard you. I know it took a while. Those are actually a lot of work to do. But I do have templates built now that should make it faster going forward, and I am starting to roll those out.
I have a question.
Yep.
Are the requests, still open for the rules sections? For example, could you post some rules for the Vietnam era somewhere?
I'm literally going to have to. I'm going to have to because the counters that I'm producing for Somalia was the first one. Requested. But pretty much any of those modern expansions, the counters will literally make no sense. Unless I also put out like some rules. So good question, and the answer is yes. I'm not sure when because I have to write them still. I know what they are. I playtest them here on the stream 100 times, but I will have to. Actually write them out in a understandable, legible, clear way, and that's a lot of work. I don't know how many people in the community have ever written a wargaming rulebook before, and I mean a good book, not Age of Sigmar kind of a book where we're gonna make this like 2 pages. Okay, good luck with all that. You're gonna have a lot of questions, but I do appreciate your attempt at brevity. But rule books can't be short; they have to be long. I know long rule books are out of style right now, but there's a reason they're long because you have to answer a lot of questions.
Oh come on, vintage is cool now.
Oh no. I mean, Dark Star is like 168 pages I wrote, but granted, about half of that is ships and not rules, but it's still a long, chunky rule book. Okay. All side tangents done. We're caught up on the chat. Or mostly caught up on the chat. So now we're beginning Allied turn 6. Oh, God.
So maybe before you start playing again, Jim, I will sign off because I have to get up to work tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be like 11 o'clock where you're at.
Yeah, it's kind of late here, so thanks for the great conversation and for a cool game because actually it's interesting. It's always interesting to see Panzer Leader, Panzer Blitz, or whatever it is called, the thing that we are playing right now. I tend to call it Oriskanes Deluxe Edition. Because you always learn something, how to assault, how to use your airplanes, how to, defend and stuff like that. So it was quite interesting. Thank you for having me here, and bye-bye.
Cool. Thanks very much. Talk to you later, Piotr. Thanks for coming by.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
All right. Alright guys, so again, we may play through like one or two more turns. I don't want to be up super late here. We've already been up now for 2.5 hours. Maybe another half hour. We'll close it out a 3-hour stream. And, cool. Alrighty. Yeah, Vorpal, it's 4:33 in Indiana. It's 4:33 here where I'm at as well, but it's like plus 7 hours. Or 6 or 7, I'm not sure. For Piotr in Poland. So, yeah, for him it's getting late and he does have to go to work tomorrow. Alright, so, again, there's no real artillery in this game, so we're going to go straight to airstrikes. This is my third. Where's my fourth? This is now my fourth and last machine gun attack with my Corsairs, counting the turns. The problem is that there is now some actual Chinese ground fire that can come up at me, because these two sections of 50 calibers douches are back here. So I have to watch out for these guys. They have a range of 6. There are my machine gun. My plane's about to make a machine gun attack on this guy. So, not all of the douches can reach me. Only 2 of them can. This one and this one. So that'll be a total of 12 points. We refer to the anti-aircraft table. 12 points barely puts him here on the 3rd row. We're going to go ahead and make a roll based on this column here, and we're going to see where we wind up. This is Chinese ground fire to knock down one of my Corsairs before they make a machine gun attack on pinned down Chinese infantry. Oh, I'm losing my voice. A 6! Awesome! No effect. I love it when the Chinese roll badly. So that was lucky. These 2 batteries are now spotted. Not that it super matters, but just to kind of keep the board honest. Those 2 are now spotted. Alright, cool. So now these guys get to make their the rest of their attack. That's going to be a total of, again, 18 against 6. That's going to be a 3-to-1 attack against one of those units. 3-to-1, subtract 1, and I need a double D. So that's just 1 automatically killed, because of all the bonuses and modifiers in my CRT attack. Alright, that's it for air attack. Now I'm going to go to my direct fire. Unfortunately for me, my whatchamacallits all fired last turn during opportunity fire phase, my 3 platoons of Pershing, so they cannot fire this turn. One unit that did not fire was this battery of M16s. So they are AA, a point blank range. That's going to be 8 versus 6. Add 1 to my roll for those woods that the Chinese are hiding in. Basically, I need a 1 or a 2 to pin them down. I am firing at the engineers. A 5, I missed. So, yeah, the Marines are a little overextended right now. These mortars are going to load up, so I don't want to fire them. He's going to load up, so I don't want to fire him. Royal Marine Commando, is he going to be able to rally? He failed last time. Let's see if he makes it this time. A 1, he totally makes it this time. That was his attack, however, so he will not get a chance to attack this turn. His attack was to rally. So I'm going to set him off to the side a little bit. These other 2 platoons can totally attack, though. In fact, I think I will attack with them. Any other direct fire? Not really. Cool. So I'll go over to UN movement phase. Again, double range of speed of 2, and we're doubled on the road. 1, 2, because that first movement point was not on a road. So these guys are now humping up the road as fast as they can. I'm going to try and get to where they can start to take at least 1 or 2 of these objective X's up here. Meanwhile, back here, 1, 2. lot of empty trucks back here, but they're going to have to load up some of these infantry again. So those trucks are not quite unemployed yet. Okay, this machine gun section, believe it or not, is not able to take part in the last cat attack because in order for a machine gun section to participate in a cat attack, he has to be stacked with friendly infantry. So he is not. He's only got an empty truck in there, so he cannot help out. He's just sort of bypassing this town as those assaults go in. And that's going to be Marines from one, I should say Royal Marines, British Royal Marines from one side and U.S. Army from the other side. So I have a grand total of 10 points from Baker Company, 1st of the 31st. That's 10. 17 total points versus 6. Again, he was rallied, so he does not get to attack. So again, it's a frustratingly just short of 3-1. But I have 17 against 6. That's 2-1. You always round down, no matter how close you are. 17 versus 6 is strictly 2-1. However, it becomes 3-1 because I have Royal Engineers helping me. So that becomes 3-1. Subtract 3 from the die roll, 2 for cat attack, 1 for dispersed unit. Add 1 to the roll because he is in light buildings. So it's a 3-1. Subtract 1 from the die. Subtract 2 from the die roll. I'm pretty sure a double D will kill him. Well, a double D will kill him. I'm pretty sure I don't even need dice. 3-1 table. Subtracting a net 2. Yeah, even if I roll a 6, it's read as a 4. He's so dead. This is literally just mopping up. So he's toast. That's what you get for not rallying. And that wraps up those assaults. And cat attacks pretty much close out a game turn. We now go to Chinese turn 6. The Chinese here are kind of consolidating for a cat attack, or for a counter attack if the Pershings come up the hill and try and snatch this objective hex. We have another objective hex there. Wow, the Chinese are pretty much tabled. Okay, cool. That'll make the turns go quick. We do have one cat attack here. Now, the cat attack is what we call a motionless cat attack. Note that the Chinese do not have to move to launch their cat attack. They're already adjacent. Therefore, no opportunity fire is available to those Pershings. Again, technically this is illegal. 6 against 36. Any attack, especially a cat attack, that starts off at worse than 1-4 odds is by gospel, chapter, and verse illegal. So I just don't want the game to be completely one-sided. I'm using the justification that because you have engineers stacked with them, when you have engineers stacked with them in Panzer Leader rules, you click up one odds column. So I'm saying that these guys are clicking up to 1-4 odds. Again, I don't think that's strictly the way the rule is written, but I'm trying to make sure that the Chinese have at least some kind of a chance to do something. So basically they need a 1 or a 2 to disperse those Pershings. Oh no, they did it! That's what I get for being nice to the Chinese. All 3 Pershing platoons are dispersed. So these tanks are pinned down by mass Chinese infantry. We got Molotov cocktails, we have anti-tank mines being slid into the tracks. Nobody's dead, but that Marine Tank Company is all kinds of screwed up right now. Here's the long and short of it. Okay, so then we go to turn 7. Oh wait, I do have to try and rally that rifle platoon. He does rally. Boy, these Chinese are pissed off, man. We're not going down without a fight. Okay, so turn 7. What I should have done is back up those Pershings one turn. That was a tactical mistake. They're already spotted, so they've done their job. The tactical move now is to back up 1 hex, where they can't cat attack me, or if they do, they have to bail out of those woods to do so. That was a mistake on my part. Those Marine tanks should have pulled back 1 hex on turn 6. They should have. Turn 7. Okay, these Corsairs are now totally bingo everything. Bingo bombs, bingo napalm, bingo rockets, bingo bullets, bingo fuel. They're heading back to the carrier. So there's no more airstrikes for the rest of the game. We now go to direct fire phase. There really isn't any... Oh, crap, I forgot to move... I'm going too fast now. I forgot to move all these units. Last movement phase, they did load up on their trucks, and then they get half movement. Damn it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that was turn. Now we're at the beginning of turn 7. Direct fire phase really isn't very much. I can do this. 1-to-1, pin them down. Actually, I'm going to try and pin down those engineers. 6, epic fail. Army, you suck! Alright. Damn you, machine. Marine infantry is coming up to support those tanks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Army infantry. 1, 2. Hey, we finally took an objective hex. What do you know? Again, we're using the road movement rate. 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to get to where these guys are able to unload this turn. 1, 2, I should say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, unload. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On the road now to 7. I want to make sure those 50 cals are close enough to assault the hex or to provide fire support for the hexes I want to eventually assault on turn 8 or so. One problem with the British 76mm mortars as opposed to the American 81s, they are shorter ranged. Try and get on the road here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Again, they don't get the road movement rate because they're moving through hexes with more than 2 units on them. Get these Army 50 cals up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Move these machine guns into that objective hex. Just make sure the Chinese don't get cute and steal my hex from me. And get the rest of these trucks up the column. Alright, we'll check out Mr. Chat. Nothing really going on right now in the chat. Awesome. Yeah, we're just going to wrap up a few last turns here, guys, and sort of close out the stream. Okay, one thing I definitely have to do, I have to rally those tanks. Tanks with A class rally on 1 through a 5. So this is important. Those 3 Shermans, because if they don't, there's a whole company of Chinese infantry with engineer support right next to them. If they don't rally, I'm gonna have I'm gonna actually have some burning some burning Pershings on the table. So first Pershing platoon, yes. Second Pershing platoon, no. Third Pershing platoon, yes. 2 rallied, 1 did not. Chinese turn. I have a total of 8 points against 36. It is now still technically worse than 1 to 4, but again, I'm sort of being a little generous with the Chinese here and allowing their engineers to bump them up to the 1 to 4 table. On a 1, they actually blow up a Sherman platoon, a Pershing platoon. A 3. So a 3 becomes a 1, no additional effect. Actually, a 3 becomes a 0 for that previously pinned down Sherman. He's only still pinned down. Okay, cool. Yeah, if he rolled a 1, you have to subtract 2, make that 3. He would have actually killed some Pershings. One platoon of Pershings would have gone down. They did have a slender chance to actually kill some Pershings there. But I got a little lucky. Last thing to do, last thing to do in my turn, once I rally those 2 that did match, oh, I have to leave them there. Otherwise it would have been killed. Okay, beginning turn 8. Okay, turn 8. Actually, no. Two, 3, 4. Shit. These are all cliffs. Who drew this map? Alright, these Pershings have to kind of take the long way around here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh man, this is risky. Please rally. I'm actually not kidding. Please rally. Thank God. He only has half his movement because he had to rally. That's considered an attack. Okay, direct fire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 13. That's a total of 2 to 1 against... You know what? I want those engineers pinned down. 2 to 1, add 1 to the die roll because he's in tree cover. 3 becomes a 4. That's a pin. I'll take it. That made that company a lot less dangerous. Okay. Now I can move up with everything I did not fire with. They do get counterattack. That is a total of 6 against 10. That is 1 to 2 odds. This is counterfire from the Chinese. A 3, they missed. And that was opportunity fire, which means they don't get to counterattack me next turn. Now I have 15 versus 18. That's 1 to 2. Subtract 1 from the die roll. Again, subtract 2 for cat attack, add 1 to trees, so it's a net subtract 1. I'm going to cat attack straight into this infantry company. I probably won't kill him, but I'll pin him down, and I'll take care of him next turn. A 2! A 2 subtracting 1 becomes 1. A 2 subtracting 2 for the guy that's already pinned. Did I kill that engineer platoon? A 0 on the 1 to 2 table. Engineers are dead, everybody else is pinned. Is the long and short of that one. Marine Corps. When you absolutely need Chinese engineers dug out of a tree line, settle for the very best. Or insist on the best. Although, to be fair, they had a lot of Army fire support for that as well. Speaking of Army... Okay, let me be cool about this. Split move and fire rule. Now I can legally use the road movement rate the whole way. Army's coming up to support the Marines. Did I move the army twice? No. Alright, I want to make sure I'm not cheating. They were there before, right? Alright, cool. I'm going to unload. Actually, I'm going to move them a little bit more and now unload them. So, guys, you're allowed to move half of your movement rate and then unload a unit if it's not bigger than, I think it's an 88 millimeter. Page Leader actually provides you with a brief list of what weapons you're allowed to do that in. So some weapons require the entire turn to unload or limber, or unload and unlimber, however you want to call it. Some units can do it if they have if they're small enough. Then it only counts as half their movement to either load, unload, limber, unlimber. Everything here is super small because it's Korea. I don't want to do this in the same hex though, because then that will cause an overstacking rule and cost me a truck. So I'm trying not to do that. Notice I put my shorter range British stuff up front. In fact, hold on. Let me be cagey. And reverse the position of those two trucks. There, my shortest range stuff, that's direct fire, is in front. My longer ranged indirect fire stuff is in back, and my longest range indirect fire is even further back. So I can hopefully provide the most amount of fire support for my last couple turns of assault and movement. Okay, I think that concludes turn 8 for the UN. See, if I move here, he's going to be able to fire at me with all this stuff. So, you know what? I'm going to make him. I just want to make him fight for the objective X. Okay, so here we go. They did all move to get there, which means those Pershings do get a chance to do direct fire ahead of time. That is going to be. I have to be careful what I'm using my opportunity fire on here, because I'm already planning for turn 9. Opportunity fire. Opportunity fire. Opportunity fire. I don't think mortars can use opportunity fire. 8 points. 9, 10, 11. Another 8 points. 19. And make that. Well, 19's good enough. That's 3-1 against this unit here. And Bob, if you're still with us, the reason I'm not having that against uphill fire is obviously I have different elevation rules with the way I draw my maps. So you'll notice that there's no slope hex. These hills are not quite as big as those that are described on a Pains Leader map board. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Yep, a 1 when you need it at the most. It's cold. That's warm food in the rear, showers, beds, Yankee go home. We're trying. We're trying to get up to Hagaru-ri so that we can hold the door open so we can all go home. Okay, so that's going to be 18 points, 19 points technically, but 18 basically. So 3-1 against one of those units. I'm trying to kill one. Let's make this easier. Do it! I need a good roll here. I do not get it. He's only pinned. That was a lot of opportunity fire for not much good. Okay, now it is 3 points against 24 that has 1 to 8 odds. That cat attack is broken up. The cat attack is not happening. I will try to rally these 2 Chinese rifle platoons. 4 is a failure. Sorry guys, there's the camera. And the other one. 4 is also a failure. UN turn 3. Turn 9. We're going to finish this game after all. Turns are going super fast. Okay, notice these 2 clowns here did not take opportunity fire. Neither did he. There's a reason for that. I wanted to do it at least once so you guys could see it. It's everyone's favorite rule in Panzer Leader. It's the overrun. Armor overrun versus these guys. And with only 3 points available for opportunity counterattack, opportunity counterattack is not legal. Pershings are going to be picking Chinese out of their tracks. Splat. Literally overrunning them. Okay, so I'm definitely within overrun range. That's going to be a total of... An overrun range takes place during the movement phase. So, you know what? Let me not get ahead of myself. I'm so excited about my overruns. Let me not do that. Okay, no air phase, direct fire phase. These guys can't shoot because they all fired. These two mortars can because they have not used opportunity fire. 6 and 6 because they're using direct fire against him. 2 to 1, knock him out. He probably won't, but pin him down for a counterattack. 6, hell no, he missed. My mortars whiffed again. That's going to be it for direct fire. Because again, these guys all fired, these guys have other plans, and these two mortar batteries just whiffed. Sweet. Now we go to movement phase. Now we're going to do that overrun. Blah! So I got 30 versus, two 15s obviously. 30 versus 18 and 5 is 23. So that, no, sorry, 12 and 5 is 17. That's almost 2 to 1. Can I get up there? 1, 2. Because I'm going uphill. 3, 4. I still have 2 movement points left. I can do the Arab Israeli War style overrun. 45 versus 17. That is 3 to 1. No, it's not. This is what Vorpal hates. 17 times 3, and I get it. Sometimes it gets annoying. Alright, so it's only 2 to 1. 2 to 1, a sloppy 2 to 1, becomes 3 to 1 because of an overrun. Subtract 2 from the die roll. Come on, Marine Armor, do it! A 4 becomes a 2 on 2 to 1, on 3 to 1. 1, 2, 3. You're out. I keep forgetting I'm trying to actually keep track of my losses here. And we have that X. There was another kill up here I didn't mark. Oh boy. Alright, cool. We now have 2 objective hexes. Continuing my movement phase now into not vehicles. Non-vehicle movement, I should say. Technically, in a movement phase, you're supposed to move all your vehicles first. I now have 3 objective hexes. Technically, the UN has now won the game. Move. Move. And there's a reason I'm doing that. Now I can get extra units into my counterattack. And that makes a difference. So again, once you learn the details of Panzerleader, the reason I broke up that Marine close assault into 2 fronts like that is that now, because of stacking limitations, I can bring in all 4 of these units. I can bring in this Marine Corps machine gun section. Now that brings me up to 17 points. Which, never mind, still doesn't get me to 3 to 1. Damn you! That's okay. That's not even the important one. The important one is the army. Coming up here for another assault on this road. In fact, I may have some of these Marines help the army. 1 to 2. I do have to give the Chinese opportunity fire. 1 to 2. They can't take opportunity fire because they're still pinned. That is 6 to 4. Sorry, 2 to 4. That's 1 to 2. They might get lucky. They just barely missed. Okay, so now the assault goes in. I have 12 versus 6. That gives me a 2 to 1. Subtract 2 from the die roll. And I just threw the dice on the floor. I'll find it later. New dice. 4 becomes a 2 on 2 to 1. He is pinned down. And now I have 4, 4 and 2, 10, 15 versus 12. 1 to 1 minus a net 2 from the die roll. Again, plus one for woods, -1 for being dispersed, -2 for cat attack. So it's a net -2 on 1-to-1. A double D will kill you. A 4 becomes a 2 on 1-to-1. 4 becomes a 2 on 1-to-1. He barely survived. Damn these Chinese. They are holding that little wood section like for real. They're not playing around. Ugh. Chinese turn, obviously, because I'm already moving around Chinese units. Rally that infantry unit by himself in 1409, 1 or 2. He rallies. 1508 number 1. Does not. 1508 number 2. Does not. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Was that turn 9 we just did? Yep, last turn of the game. We're there, guys. 3-to-1, -2. Yep. Yeah, Bob, we did have one overrun. Very happy about that. The problem is, I think I have reached the limit of the game because we're now at turn 10, and I don't think I'm going to get much else done. So for turn 10, just for fun, we do direct fire first. I have a lot of direct fire I can throw in here. 6 plus 6, count with me, is 12. Plus 8 is 20. Plus 8 more is 28. 29, 30, 31. What am I going for here? I'll stop at 24. So 8 plus 8 plus 6, hold on. These guys are going to fire. I'm going to slightly cant them this way so I know I fired them. That is 16 plus 6 is 22, plus 6 more is 28. That gives me 2-to-1 on both of those guys in that hex. I'm trying to clear them out so that I can advance through the hex. Obviously, I cannot overrun into a stream hex into a woods hex. -2 against both of them, net -1. I basically need a 1 through a 3 on the 2-to-1 table. +1 for woods, -1 for being dispersed. The difference is a double D result equals a kill because they're already dispersed. Sweet! I just got it on camera. 3 is a double dispersal, barely on 2-to-1. These two units are destroyed with no further assault required, which means I can occupy that hex. Who cares? Because that's not an objective hex, but... Alright. It means that these guys can use the road movement rate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I can't attack anybody, and I'm going to take some opportunity fire going in, but at least I'll put a dent in this other position. Pershings come off the hill to overrun. 15 against 6 is... Actually, I'm going to throw in 2. 2 Pershing platoons. 2 Pershing platoons... Oh, they can't do that. Illegal movement. You know, you think I'm the one that drew this map or something. Alright, I have to come off the hill in a legal way. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. Because I obviously can't barrel off that cliff. Oh wait, yeah I can. That's only 1 terrain movement point, 1 terrain elevation level, 2 terrain elevation levels. Never mind, I'm able to do it. Okay, so 15 plus 15 is 30 versus 6 is technically 4-to-1. Becomes 7-to-1, subtract 2 from the die roll, he's killed without any dice required. And Pershings are finally able to do some work. That means that assault is never required. Continuing my vehicle movement. Four, five, six. Actually, out of a gully. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 to come out of a gully, 2 to enter a tree axe. So that Pershing just crashed through that frozen ice in that little creek and barreled up on the backside of that hill. I keep forgetting to keep track of my losses here. These smoke markers have no game balance, no game effect. They're not like wreck counters. The Chinese obviously have no armored vehicles, so there probably won't be any wreck counters on today's game. But I like to just keep track of where people have expired. Because it allows you to kind of scroll out at the end of the game and kind of track the battle's progress by seeing where, things are burning. Okay. Units that did not fire get full movement. Royal Marines and U.S. Army are going to coastal assault the first piece of this anti-aircraft battery position. They are going to take some opportunity fire coming in, though. 12 versus 4, that's 3 to 1 odds. Uh-oh. We may have some Army fatalities here. Nope, just pinned down. Close. A 3 would have killed him. So he is pinned. He will not get a chance to do his assaults. Both of those batteries were able to help out with that. Both of those douche sections. So now I'm looking at 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12, 15 versus 2. Oh my god. 7 to 1, and I have engineers. Yeah, forget it. He's dead. These aren't actually infantry units. Notice their very weak defense factor. It's a couple gun crews with some douches. It's not an infantry rifle platoon. So their defense factor is much smaller than... it's basically light artillery as opposed to an infantry section. Okay, half movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just to make sure that that's occupied. They fired so they can't load. Ah! Yeah, the rest of the convoy just starts to truck up the road here. I'm losing my voice. Truck up the road here. Okay, then we go to Chinese turn 10, and that's going to wrap things up. He's already fired this douche section. These guys are not going to give away their position. They're going to make the Americans come to them and actually try to assault them. Of course, it's not going to happen because we're not going to play the rest of the game. The game's over at turn 10. But in a realistic setting, they're not going to give their position. They're going to make the Americans assault that little town there on the road, crossroads. As this scout section moves forward, he's in 1202. These Pershings are going to take a shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are still in half range, so they still get their full 15. So 15 and 15 is 30. That is 6 to 1. Make that 4 to 1. We're going to try and take out those scouts before they can vanish into those tree lines, or those small villages there. A 4 on 4 to 1 is a kill. Again, I'm playing super fast here, guys, because we are now over 3 hours up. But here's the good news. We have finished a Panzer Leader game, which almost never happens on a stream. Usually by the time we get done with the setup and the history, it's like, and again, Panzerleader is not a fast game. You wind up with, 2 or 3 turns done. Oh, we'll finish the rest later, or we won't. You guys have an idea how Panzerleader works. The hell with that. We actually managed to finish the whole game for a change. And that was with a lot of side discussion as well. So thanks very much for sticking with us. There is our final result. We have technically a UN victory, although a bloody one and a slow one. By that I mean I have taken 1, 2, actually I'll circle them real quick. I have taken 1, 2, damn it, 3 objective hexes. I've taken the majority of objective hexes. When I design these scenarios for stream, guys, what I usually do, and again, people who watch the stream know this, I usually design either 5 or 7 objective hexes. And that allows always an odd number, and whoever owns the majority of objective hexes at the end of the game wins. The Chinese technically still have 2. There's 1 here, and then there's the exit hex to Hagaru-ri there. So the Chinese still hold 2, the UN holds 3. So we did not get all the way up the road like we were supposed to. We definitely inflicted some horrific casualties on the Chinese. Admittedly, we took some casualties ourselves. We did lose some trucks. We lost 1 whole platoon of Royal Marines, and we have lost some U.S. Army, some U.S. Army jeeps. We could have lost some Pershings, and we could have lost some. The Chinese just got some bad rolls on top of all their other problems. But they really could have lost this game, or they could have done a lot more casualties. One thing they did do, however, successfully was they did play for time. They didn't defend these 2 hexes terribly well. In fact, they didn't defend them very well at all. But good God, man, it took me 4.5 turns, about half the game, to take that first one. And they completely successfully defended these 2. I didn't even get a chance to attack them before the clock ran out. So technically speaking, yeah, the Allies might have won with 3 out of 5. Narrative-wise, the Chinese are still blocking that road. So Chesty Puller is not pleased. Why the hell aren't my Marines further up that highway? God damn it, we're supposed to be in Hagaru-ri by now, supporting that evacuation point for 5th, 7th, and 11th Marines and the rest of 37th Regimental Combat Team, 7th U.S. Infantry, pulling back from the west and east sides of Chosin Reservoir, respectively. The Marines to the west, the Army to the east. And we're not there yet. Turn 10, we're in. Chesty Puller's not pleased because I do not have all 5 objectives. I do have 3, so game-wise, it's kind of a win. But yeah. Where are we at here? I love this game. Cool, Bob. Thanks very much. Definitely appreciate it. Also enjoyed the banter and the talk. Like being in the game store with the crew pre-COVID. Oh yes, like being in the game store with the crew. Yeah. My favorite part of gaming is almost like either before the game or after the game. When you're sitting around bullshitting afterwards. Totally. What else is going on here? 1210 and 1309 is legal. Let me see what you're talking about there. 1210 and 1309 is... Oh, yeah, coming off that road. Yeah, I misinterpreted my own map there for a second. 1210 and 1309 is legal. Bob, you're totally correct about that. That was the route I eventually took. Empiric victory. Yep, Pyrrhic victory. I like war games. Your victory conditions work well. Yeah, it allows one side to get tabled. It's because some of the more interesting scenarios that we like to play is, France, 1940, Barbarossa, 41, Gulf War, 1991. The idea of setting up 2 armies chess style and duking it out and the last man standing is just absurd. It's never going to happen. So you have to give the defender, like the French in 1940, the Soviets in 41, the Iraqis in 91, the Syrians in 73, the Egyptians in 67 or 73. You have to give the defenders all the objective X's. Hell, Piotr and I, who was on the stream earlier, did a 3-game series of Panzer Blitz 1939. We created the invasion of Poland. in 1939. Some scenarios there. So yeah, talk about a one-sided campaign. But you can still make a fair game out of it by establishing pre-establishing asymmetrical victory conditions. I try to do as much research as I can about a given engagement and then recreate it to the best of my ability. I am admittedly sometimes more successful than others, but the general idea is to recreate the battle as best you can, and the result of the game is the draw line. If you can match what the attacker did in the actual battle, that's a draw. If you don't get as far, or if you take more casualties, or whatever, then you lose. If you can exceed the victory conditions, you win. Or the actual victory, results, you win. And that sounds really simple, but it's not. Because let's say you're playing the Israelis in 67. You're up against the Egyptians at Abu Agila, or Rafah, or Khan Yunis. Those big 1967 battles. You're heading down Jarati Pass, down the El Arish coastal road, on the north shoulder of the Sinai. How badly did the Israelis curb stop the Egyptians in 1967? Oh, I want to play the Israelis because they're going to win really bad. Yeah, but in order to win, you have to do better than they did historically. And there's the rub. The Germans in 41, the Germans in 40, the Germans in 39. Yay, you get the tougher army, you get the faster tanks, you get the Stukas, you get the artillery. You have to advance faster and take less casualties than the Germans did in the actual event. So that's where especially new players, oh, I'll play the Germans, I'll play the Israelis. Holy shit, this game is hard. I thought I had the tougher army. You do have the tougher army. You also have the ridiculously demanding and challenging victory requirements. Whereas the Iraqis in 91, the Soviets in 41, the French in 40, or the Poles in 39, they just have to survive. If they have one counter on one objective hex at the end of the game, they win. The rest of your army is friggin' tabled. You have covered the board in rec counters, but you win. So yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22 when it comes to asymmetrical, historically based victory conditions. It's not exactly a rule of Panzerleader, but it's definitely the way I like to build my scenarios. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. The time scale is the same as Panzerleader, approximately 6 to 10 minutes per turn. Actually, yes. Yeah, so you say 6 to 10 minutes per turn. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I kind of imagined 15. I don't really pay that much attention to it. 12 to 15. But, yeah, the original game says 6 minutes per turn. And again, I love Panzerblitz. I love Panzerleader, obviously. Here I am playing it. I play dozens of games almost every Sunday. I'm always playing this. The problem is the game had a lot of problems when it first came out, and they said 6 minutes per turn. How did they arrive at that? Does anyone know? They took the speed of the unit, and they divided, they say how fast it goes in 6 minutes, and they said, yeah, that's what the unit does. That's how they came up with 6 minutes. They took the speed of the unit, they saw how far it goes, divided by 250 meter hexes. Well, number one, they got the speed totally wrong. Totally wrong. Here's what they did. They looked up the maximum speed of a unit, say a Panther, and they said, oh, it does 45 kilometers an hour, or whatever, 30 miles an hour, whatever the speed for a Panther is. They said, cool, the maximum speed, and they said that was the maximum speed of the unit. They gave it a movement of 10, I think, in Panzerleader. Oh, wait. Road rules. We have to have road rules. What's the road rule? You get double movement on roads. Hey, dumbass researchers. When you looked up the maximum speed of the unit originally, that was the road speed. And now you've doubled it. So, yeah, that's how the speeds in Panzerleader got completely out of whack. And a good war game like this is basically a geometric function between speed and range. Not so much firepower, despite everyone likes to kill people or whatever in games. It's really between range and maneuver is how a game really kind of fits together. So that's how the ranges got too big. So yeah, they just made a couple really bad mistakes. Now on top of that, they said, okay, the hexes are 250 meters. The tank can move X amount of hexes in X amount of time. How much time is that? Do the math, do the division. Boom, it comes out to 6 minutes. That's fine. That's fine. Yes, Bob Peterson says the time scale on Panzerblitz's Panzerleader is very aggressive. It totally is. And they relied too much on math. Number one, they got the math totally wrong. We just kind of went through that. And number two, even if they got the math right, the tank platoon is doing more than just driving down the road in those 6 minutes. A battalion commander, or actually a regimental commander, is getting on. You're basically playing a regimental commander. The regimental commander is calling a battalion commander. The battalion commander is talking to his S3. The S3 is calling his company commanders. His company commanders are talking to his platoon leaders, and then they're moving. Okay, I just talked about at least 3 or 4 minutes of radio conversations. So before a unit moves anywhere, there's a reason tank advances are not like road trips. You don't just get the tank on the road, put the heel to the steel, open a beer, and just cruise down the road. You're taking orders from multiple echelon command levels above that. So in a given turn, that tank is sitting there doing nothing for at least 5 or 6 minutes before it ever hits the gas. And once it hits the gas, as anyone who's been on a big multi-car road trip will tell you, one person or one car can move X distance in Y time. 10 cars will not cover the same distance in that same amount of time. Disorganization, someone's out of gas, someone's got to go to the bathroom. I know no one's going to the bathroom in the middle of combat, but anyone who's gotten together 4 or 5 cars together on a cross-country road trip knows that you're not making the same time as if you were just by yourself in one car. This is a unit-based game. For 200 men in a company, 3 units stacked together, that's about 150 men there. For 150 men to move, 1 hex, and for 1 man to move 1 hex, you're not exactly doing, 100-meter dash when you do that, when you move from 1 hex to another. There's a lot of other stuff going on. And for some reason, I'm unable to move counters now. There we go. When you move 1 hex, that's not a 100-meter dash. Again, that's captains talking to lieutenants talking to color sergeants talking to corporals and platoon leaders, and it's a mess. And then they move out. They have to get in formation. They have to get their gear up. They have to, when they get there, they have to spread out, retake positions, go prone, set up fire arcs. So, yeah, just because a unit can physically move X distance in Y time does not yield a 6-minute turn. So I go at least 10 to 12, maybe even 15-minute turns. And that doesn't really come into play, because who cares how long the turn is? It comes into scenario design when you're trying to establish victory conditions and you're looking up a previous battle that happened historically, like how far did Israeli 7th Armored really get on 7 June 1967? And you're like, a mile and a half? Oh no, 2 miles? Make that 7 miles. Okay, how many hexes is that? And how many turns do you really give the Israeli player to cover that same distance in Y time? X distance in Y time. If you use 6-minute turns, you wind up giving the attacker way too much time and the defender has no chance. Because, 6-minute turns. The Israelis took an hour historically to get from point A to point B. That gives you 10 turns. No, they should have like 4 turns to get that same, mission accomplished. And that's where your defender gets a chance in hell with his, obviously, inferior equipment, inferior troops, inferior air support, or no air support, bad artillery, everything else. That's about the only time length of a turn really comes into play. Not really during the game, but in the scenario design, specifically vis-a-vis time-based objective conditions. An armored car, I know, Panzerblitz can have an armored car go from Foy to Bastogne in like 6 minutes, for example. Yeah, and here, it's interesting the way you pose that, Bob Peterson. If it was a armored car who already knew where he was going and knew that the road ahead was clear and he wasn't actually in combat. In other words, if I was actually in Foy in my rental car from, Paris airport and I was driving to Bastogne, I probably could do that in 6 minutes because I'm on a paved road. not in the snow. And I'm not a platoon of armored cars being shot at by Germans, and I'm not waiting for a regimental commander to talk to a battalion commander, to talk to an S3, to talk to a company commander, to talk to a platoon leader, to talk to me, to say, go down that road until you get blown up. That's where the time scale really starts to accordion. Corporal Bright says Puma. Yeah, I love my Pumas. They are fun. Do I have a Puma handy? Not on this computer, no. Sorry, I do not. I forgot I'm on my other computer. But German armored cars in general are fun. Absolutely. What do I have on this computer? Open. I might have some previous games on here. Naval Command, Letter to Mark Game, Hurricane Force. No, I don't really have any armored cars on here. Oh god, this is a different game system. Never mind. This is Valor and Victory. So yeah, definitely no armored cars in this. Sorry about that. Not the same battle, exactly. Yeah, not in the same, not the same in a battle. Yeah, totally. I have been inspired by your enemy. The general will be eating Chinese food tonight. Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Jen. I'm actually really hungry. I don't think I've had anything to eat today. Because I wanted to get this game set up and, of course, run the stream for you guys. Speaking of which, we've now been up for 3.5 hours. Oh, my God. Guys, thank you very much. Thank you, Vorpal. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Novus Templar. Thank you, obviously, Piotr, who came out with us before. We already said Novus Templar. Tough Ears, Marty, everybody who came out. I'm not even going to try, because we had a great audience today. I'm not even going to try to mention everybody by name, because there was a lot. Because science teacher, obviously, as always, thank you very much for your help checking our sound levels. Thanks very much, Bill, Sitrep Podcast, for coming out earlier, and of course everyone else on all our platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitch, and we are on YouTube, obviously. Ugh, totally losing my voice. I'll have to get some hot tea for if I have another big Panzer Leader stream, because Panzer Leader streams tend to run long. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close out the stream. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. Thanks very much, everyone, for helping me or for joining me today in, commemorating what, is kind of an important date. Not only for the Marine Corps, but for pretty much everybody who, studies the Korean War and so on. In fact, this was one of the reasons I picked this exact engagement, because it wasn't just Marine Corps. It also features the U.S. Army and even British Royal Marines. So this is kind of a big deal. The Korean War. I mean, Chosin Reservoir is mostly remembered as a famous Marine Corps battle, but that's not really fair. 31st Regimental Combat Team was totally in it, up to their neck, same as everybody else. And again, we even had help from the Navy, and we had, of course, help from the British Royal Marines. So, yeah, the Korean War in general was really a coalitional United Nations effort, much more than Vietnam would be. Korea was really kind of the first big test for the United Nations, to see if the United Nations would work and not just be another League of Nations. So, obviously the United Nations kind of passed the test. It wasn't easy. The Korean War wound up lasting 3 years. Technically, it's still going on to this day, famously. The Korean War is technically never ended. It's only in a very long ceasefire. Nobody ever signed a piece of paper saying that the war was actually over. Technically, that war is ongoing to this day. And if you don't believe me, take a walk along the DMZ. That war is still going on. Nobody's shooting right now, knock on wood. But that war is technically not even over. So it bears in mind, it bears mentioning, because this is not a war that should be forgotten. It's often known as the Forgotten War, which is a hell of a shame. It shouldn't be forgotten because it's still going on, and it could reignite almost any moment. North Korea is not exactly on our Christmas card list right now, as I'm sure everybody knows. So this is not something that should sort of slip our minds, especially today, 70th anniversary of the Trojan Reservoir. Always puts a little bit of a damper on my Thanksgiving weekend, because Thanksgiving is kind of my reminder about the Chosin Reservoir. But when you actually have had time in the Corps, they tend to drill that into you. Don't forget Quezon, don't forget Hue, Iwo Jima, Bellawood, Chosin Reservoir. We did the 75th anniversary of Iwo Jima last February. Obviously, we did the 100th anniversary of Bellawood in 1918 in Valor and Victory. So I did not want to miss Chosin Reservoir. I tried to hit the big marine. We did Hue City in January and February of 2018. We did the 50th anniversary of those battles. So yeah, whenever a big Marine Corps anniversary comes up, I try not to miss it. I went to War Games and my wife didn't even know. Oh. It's like this when I went to my game club. War Burrito, thanks for putting us on and risking it next time. Okay, Bob and Vorpal and everybody else that's still on. Yeah, again, thanks very much, everybody. Semper Fi, and I will talk to everybody probably next week. We try to put something on every Sunday. Last thing I'll mention, especially to Bob and Vorpal, if you guys ever want to try this for yourself, if you ever want to be part of the show, let me know. You can reach us, you can drop a comment here, obviously. You can reach us at sitrep.podcast@gmail.com. And all you really need is a Skype account. And we can go ahead and do one of these games one of these days if you ever wanted to try it. It doesn't even have to be on camera. We can try it during the week or something, who knows. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and close out the stream. Thanks very much, everybody, and I'll be in touch during the week ahead. Take care, everybody, and thanks one more time.